Alright guys, I'm here with my 500th video, and this is my first Q&A. I appreciate everybody who's left me questions, so I'm going to try and answer all of these. I don't edit my videos or anything, so it's just going to be one straight shot to the end. So I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but let's try and get this done. Starting with, I actually have a few questions on some other videos, so I'm going to try and get to those first. This is by the SES Man 3. Good review, man. I'm not really a horror movie kind of guy or watch Dexter, but I like the vids anyway. My question for the Q&A is, what is your favorite band? It's really tough to pick a favorite band of all time. I know there's a lot of bands I'm not necessarily a big fan of, but you can't deny they have a ton of hits, like Metallica. They have a ton of songs, just the singles, that are really great that I enjoy listening to, but I'm not really a huge Metallica fan, but I have to say that I do like a lot of their songs. I think Queen probably is the best overall, just because they have so many great songs, and they're really catchy, and it's lasted throughout the years. So I definitely think Queen deserves to be in the top. I'm also a big fan of something more modern. I would say Blink-182. I've always enjoyed their songs. You buy one of their CDs and it's like every song is really good, really catchy, and that's something that sticks out in my mind is when I listen to an album, do I like all the songs? And it's very rare to find a band where you can sit and listen to it and you actually like every single song on the CD. But I feel that way with Blink-182. I feel that way with a band, Alkaline Trio. So there are some great bands out there that I can sit and just listen to every single song on the CD and like it. At least the older Alkaline Trio stuff. Now, not so much. Suicide Dive Wrestling, or this is by Hydra LX. Suicide Dive Wrestling, I have a real pro wrestling question for you. The Clique, Sean, Kevin, Scott, X-Pac, and Hunter supposedly was influencing the cards for WWF events, right? Vince had no control over their behavior as noted in the archives of WWF. Or was he the leader of the group? Remember, this was the beginning of the Attitude Era, and people like Bret Hart, Shane Douglas had problems with this group. What do you think about the true inception of this backstage stable? Was Vince all behind it? No, I don't think so at all. I think Vince had to go along with the Clique just because of who they were. They were all top guys. I mean, Triple H wasn't so much, and X-Pac wasn't really, but Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Shawn Michaels were some of his top names. And it wasn't so much that Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were there, it was Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was his guy, and whatever he wanted, Vince kind of went along with it. Many times in the past this happened. So I do think that Shawn Michaels had a lot of say in the old WWE era, or WWF era, but I don't think Vince was behind it at all. If he was, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall would have never left. And if them going to WCW was part of some conspiracy, huge plan, I don't think they would have beat them in the ratings for so many weeks, and Vince allowed this. So I definitely don't think Vince was behind that at all. This is by Justin Poole. Hey man, here's some Q&A questions. What's your top 5 best ECW matches and worst ECW matches from the original? Oh man, that is really tough. I can tell you my favorite ECW match right off the top of my head is Sabu versus Terry Funk in a barbed wire match. That was amazing. Really love that match. What's some other good ECW matches? Some of the stuff that sticks out in my mind, you watch it again now, and it's not so great, like Sabu versus Sandman Stairway to Hell match. I remember Taz going through the ring with Bam Bam, or the ramp. I can't remember which one it was, but just a lot of crazy moments. Tommy Dreamer versus Raven. Sandman versus Raven in a barbed wire match I didn't think was very good. Sandman, really, you watch his stuff now, and it's just... If it was all about the entrance with Sandman, and if you watch it now and you don't really care about the entrance anymore, then you get nothing out of it. But it was always really cool to see the fans go crazy for Sandman. But yeah, once he got in the ring, it was a different story. So who else had some great matches? I mean, Jerry Lynn, Not James Storm, Lance Storm. Rob Van Dam had some amazing matches with Jerry Lynn. I think we all know those. RVD versus Sabu. Sabu versus Taz. Who else would have been around ECW in that time? But yeah, it's hard for me to pick like a key top 5. I like some of the Tanaka versus Mike Awesome matches. And they would bring in like the Luchador group. They had Tajiri, Super Crazy. And who else was in one of those matches? It was one I watched recently, I think for Anarchy Rules, and it was Guido. So those three would put on great matches. And ECW was really good at just giving the fans a lot of different stuff. As far as worst matches, Sandman matches. Some of those are terrible. The Dudley Boys put on some great matches. You had New Jack. Some of his stuff, watching it now, you could say could be a worst match just because it's not really... At the time, it was very hardcore. Watching it back now, it's not really that hardcore. It's kind of just him dancing around hitting people with stuff. And I know that's his thing, but that doesn't really make for an entertaining match anymore. So I would have to say some of his stuff, but not all of it. I mean, I still enjoy some New Jack matches. What's your top 10 best hardcore matches of all time? I guess by hardcore matches you mean really hardcore, like CZW deathmatch stuff. I really, really liked Cage of Death 5, where it was Zandig, I can't remember what they were calling themselves, versus the High Five. And that was led by Messiah, and that was awesome. They had the Cage of Death, and then they had this big walkway that led to it, and then they had a whole nother ring set up just full of thumbtacks, and people took bumps off the top of this thing into the thumbtacks below. It was just a sick, sick match. One thing that sucked about CZW was when they had to ban the light tubes in the arena. Before, they were having these crazy matches with Zandig versus Wife Beater, the I Quit matches with them, and just a ton of crazy light tube death matches. And then they banned light tubes in the arena, I guess because of the toxic fumes or something. So they had to change it. But yeah, just a lot of the old CZW stuff was great. Tournament of Death, I really liked Tournament of Death 4, the finals with Nick Gage, Necro, Zandig. Sexy Eddie versus... Who did he wrestle in that match? The match where he gets his arm cut open and he's like drinking his own blood. I think that was against Green Phantom, maybe? Sick Nick Mondo versus Zandig from Tournament of Death 2, where he takes the insane bump off the top of the warehouse building. That was awesome. Sick Nick Mondo versus Wife Beater, where he gets hit with the Weed Whacker shot. Damn, what are some other good ones? IWA Mid-South, I actually thought Ian Rotten versus Mickey Knuckles was very good. That match really surprised me, because it was the first time you ever saw like a guy, at least the first time I ever saw it, a guy wrestling a girl in a pure death match. And you would think he'd take it easy on her. He did not. There's a thing they use in death matches a lot, and it's a water jug on a stick. So those big plastic things you get water out of, like the water cooler, it is on a stick, and he just beats her in the face with this thing. It was very, very intense, but I love that match. Necro Butcher versus Madman Pondo. Toby Klein versus Necro Butcher. They had amazing deathmatch feuds. Cage of Death 7 with the Tough Crazy Bastards versus the Zandig. Was Lobo? No, not Lobo. Justice Payne, Nick Gage, and Necro Butcher just snaps and beats the shit out of Justice Payne legit. I like that match a lot. So there's a ton. I mean, if you want good death matches, watch CZW Tournament of Death, IWA King of the Death matches, or some of the Cage of Death shows. Cage of Death shows aren't going to be quite as hardcore because they can't use light tubes because it's in the arena. But the deathmatch tournaments, they do whatever the hell they want there. And I've seen some crazy stuff. I've seen a guy get like darts thrown at his back, get slammed onto fireworks, all types of stuff. What's your 10 favorite bands of all time? Well, I like Queen, Blink-182, Alkaline Trio, the Misfits, Danzig. I like Misfits with Michael Graves and Danzig, but I really like Danzig a lot. There's some other good ones. No Effects is a band I still listen to occasionally. Ramones. Smashing Pumpkins I always liked. I think Nine Inch Nails is still pretty good. I'm not even keeping track of how many bands that is. Pink Floyd was always really good. I really have to go through my CD collection for this. I have a huge CD collection, so I guess maybe one day I can go through those and do a video on that. And if you could make a dream pay-per-view with wrestlers dead and alive, who would be in it? Wrestlers dead and alive. I would do Necro Butcher versus Bruiser Brody. Maybe Owen Hart versus Dolph Ziggler. Undertaker. Who would I put Undertaker against? I guess Undertaker versus Sting would be cool, and it's looking like that's not going to happen with WWE, so I guess that would be a fun match. Who did Daniel Bryan versus Chris Benoit? Andre the Giant versus The Big Show. Why not? Alright, so this is from Cool Dude 336. What's up? It's me again. I wanted to ask you, would you rather be in a fist fight with Jason, Michael Myers, or Freddy? Well, that's pretty much a lose-lose-lose situation. But if I had to pick one of them, and I had to fight one of those three, it would be Michael Myers, just because he's human. And Jason, you couldn't beat with a... You can't beat Jason shooting him or stabbing him, so you definitely can't beat him in a fist fight. Freddy can only get you in your dreams, which means he has full power. So it would have to be Michael Myers, just because he's the only one who's human and you could maybe stun him. Okay. This is from CM Ray 123. Will you review some more latest movies? Yeah, I actually was going to the theater every single week to watch new movies, and I did that review on Sinister, and the theater just really sucked ass, and it completely turned me off of going. I watch a lot of stuff online, and Redbox, Netflix, things like that, but as far as going to the theater, it's just hard to schedule times to go. I definitely don't want to go by myself, so I'm trying to schedule times to go. And it's tough. Friday night is one of the only times I really can go, and I'm not doing that. It was hell, and there's no reason in me going through that again. So maybe I can watch some of the latest movies a little bit later, maybe not exactly on Friday night or midnight showings or anything, but I do want to review some of the newer movies. Wreck-It Ralph looks awesome. That James Bond movie, Dread 3D, things like that. How did you get your name? I just picked it randomly. Really, I was thinking of some other names and they were taken, so I picked this one and it wasn't taken, so I went with this. Did you ever think you'd get this far? No, not really. I mean, when I started doing videos, it was just audio only, and it was really just a way to bitch about some of the shows. Like TNA I thought was doing some pretty bad stuff at the time. Not as bad as it was a couple years ago, but still not very good. I apologize for my voice. My allergies are going crazy tonight. But yeah, I just started recording the audio videos, and then I got the webcam, so I started doing the regular videos, and I kept going with it and trying to review all the wrestling shows. I just enjoy doing it. It's just fun for me. Who inspired you to make videos, reviews? I watched a lot of people on YouTube, not so much wrestling reviewers. The only wrestling reviewers I really watched were a couple years ago, and that was the RVD Tito guys, Bill and Doug. I just like their opinions. We're around the same age. We watched the same type of wrestling growing up, the Attitude Era, And because of that, I really enjoyed their videos, but I didn't really watch anybody and try and base myself off of them or anything. It was just, like I said, a way for me to bitch about the shows and give my opinions on some of the shows and what I liked, what I didn't like, and I figured why not? I mean, I watch these shows every single week, so I thought it could be fun, and it kind of grew and built up, so I just wanted to keep doing it. Could you review older pay-per-views? I actually did a few old shows. I plan to do more of those in the future, but right now I know I haven't done any in a while. But I have done some old WCW, WWF stuff, a couple old ECW pay-per-views. How long have you been a fan of scary movies? Pretty much my entire life. I don't know what it is. I guess I'm really a big fan of paranormal type stuff. And I love books on paranormal stuff, and I think scary movies are a part of that. It's just the unknown, and it's just a different form of entertainment where you go in and you kind of get like scared instead of you go in and you watch it, or it's an action movie. It just gives you a different feeling than other movies would give you. The suspense and everything. It's kind of like why people ride roller coasters, I think. It's the same reason they go to watch scary movies. Can you do older ECW, WCW reviews? Yeah, I plan to do more of those in the future. Keep up the good work. Isaiah1231CPNYC. The chick in your Halloween vid, are you two an item? I see Balzer77 already answered that, yes. Who would you like to see make a comeback in the WWE? This is by Bert4425. Who would I like to see make a comeback? Oh, man. I would want them to be somebody who could still go, and it wouldn't be like a Hulk Hogan type comeback. But who left? I mean, I think they have a lot of guys right now they're just not really using, but I think Jeff Hardy would have a pretty entertaining comeback if he came, just because the fans would really be into that. They love Jeff Hardy in WWE and anywhere, really. So that would be pretty entertaining. I would actually, if it was possible, I would like to see Scott Hall in the WWE, even if it's just for a Royal Rumble appearance. As Razor Ramon, he comes out with the music and all that. I would really love to see that, but sadly, with every year that passes, it's less and less likely because he's not getting into the shape he needs to be in, and with every year, he just gets older, and it's going to make it even harder to get into that shape. So, I mean, he really needs to train now if he even wants to be able to do that. I mean, he couldn't even go to the Hall of Fame. It's so sad because I was always a huge fan of his. What's your favorite pay-per-view out of WWE and TNA? For WWE, it's the Royal Rumble. I always like that. It's my favorite show they do, and I don't know. I think when I grew up, I just always loved the Royal Rumble. I would rent the VHS tapes and watch them over and over again, and it was just always my favorite show. I also really like King of the Ring, but they don't do that one regularly. And for TNA, I guess just Bound for Glory, just because that's when they really have to go all out, and I do enjoy that show. Lethal Lockdown can be pretty entertaining too, but Bound for Glory is their biggest show, and I enjoy that one sometimes. If you were to book WrestleMania 29, what would be your matches? From Master B1297. Oh man, I guess I would do Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker. This is just what they have going right now, not like what I would, like a dream thing with anybody I want. I would do Brock versus Taker, set that up. I would do Steve Austin versus CM Punk. And I mean, if I was thinking like a business, I would save Steve Austin versus CM Punk for WrestleMania 30. But right now, I mean, I'm just thinking, why the hell not? Who else we got? And I would have Rock versus Cena again. I mean, why not? I guess I would like to see Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk get a real feud going, and I would like to see Daniel Bryan actually look like he stands a chance against CM Punk. I would love to see him get a run with the title and then have a long feud between those two. But for WrestleMania, you really have to go with a huge match. And if it was Austin versus Punk on the show, Brock versus Taker, you would have The Rock and Cena, but it would be tough to put somebody against those two that would still have the same intensity, like the same drawing power. I mean, you couldn't really do Dolph Ziggler versus Cena or Dolph versus Rock or any of those matches, really. It's not going to mean as much. So, and that's not the fault of the guys. That's WWE's fault. They haven't made enough stars. I mean, think if John Cena got legit hurt and he was just out, they would be completely screwed. Like, they couldn't do anything. And you have, like, Randy Orton, but he's not where he was. I mean, he's not the same drawing power he had before. And you got CM Punk now. And even that, he hasn't really been drawing in the ratings or anything. So Cena's their guy, and they really need to build some people up. Sheamus isn't a Cena guy. They're trying to make him, but he's just not. LOL, this is Balzer77. LOL, this is great. What is your real first name? Daniel. That's it. That's the big surprise. What's from Rebel X Youth 82? What's a dream you'd want to see if you could throw in TNA and WWE guys? I guess a dream match I'd want to see with TNA and WWE guys. I would like to see Bobby Roode in a feud with Dolph Ziggler. I would like to see AJ Styles versus a younger Undertaker. Actually, he has some here. Mine are AJ versus Dolph, Punk versus Angle, Austin Aries versus Jericho, Bobby Roode versus Daniel Bryan. Those are pretty good too, but I would go with AJ, Taker, Roode, Dolph. I guess I could do James Storm versus Daniel Bryan. I like Christopher Daniels a lot, but who would I put him against on the WWE roster? Who's a big guy, actually? Maybe Sheamus versus Abyss. And I don't know. Hopefully WWE starts to really do something. Maybe Christopher Daniels versus Damian Sandow or something like that. Or versus Cody Rhodes. WWE hopefully can do something with these new guys, Ambrose, Rollins. I mean, bring in some of these guys and actually push them. I mean, I'm just so afraid they're going to have Ryback destroy these guys. And just, you can tell how much they need new talent. Who is your favorite wrestler and favorite match of all time? By Murph D979. Favorite wrestler? It's probably between Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair. I really like both those guys, but Ric Flair is probably the best of all time. But when I was a fan, just growing up, it had to be Shawn Michaels. I just thought he was amazing. I liked him as a heel or a babyface. He was just always great. Favorite match of all time? Oh, man. Favorite match of all time. That really is a tough one. I would have to say, and obviously I'm going to forget a bunch of stuff, but I'm going to go with Hell in a Cell, Mankind versus Undertaker. 98, I believe, where he takes the bump off the top of the cell. That was just mind-blowing to me. When I watched that, I couldn't believe it. And even after that, when he goes through the top of the cell, I just didn't expect that at all. I thought, what more could they do? And they surpassed it. Also, that reminds me, Mankind versus The Rock. Some of their matches, the I Quit match, where The Rock just beats him in the head with the chair over and over, that was great. Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon in the ladder match, that was great. That one definitely sticks out in my mind a lot too. What is your favorite Beatles song? I guess I Want to Hold Your Hand by Eagle with Tourette's 19. Isaiah 1231 CPNYC. If you could date any past or present female wrestler, who would you pick? Any past or present female wrestler? Probably Trish Stratus. I think she's the most attractive one they've ever had. Sunny was pretty good too, though, but I would go with Trish Stratus. She seems to be more level-headed. Sin City Vet 89. I would like for you to make a how to fix TNA video. I love hearing other wrestling fans' ideas on how they would run TNA if they were in charge. So the obviously question would be, how would you fix TNA? Oh my gosh. How would I fix TNA? If I was in charge of TNA, the first thing I would do is I would take Hulk Hogan off of TV where he's not on there all the damn time. I would fire Brooke Hogan, but before I fired her, I would put her in an angle where she could actually put over a heel knockout and have them beat her ass or something, and then fire her. Take the X Division title off of RVD and actually make an X Division. That's something I would do. I know a lot of people who don't even like TNA, who watch TNA and they love the X Division. Well, they don't watch it, but they don't watch TNA, but if they see the X Division, they're interested in the product, and then once it's over, they change the channel. And I think they have something with the X Division, they just, for some reason, refuse to use it. And I would definitely use it. AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Kazarian, they got Kenny King, Zema Ion. They could do something with this. So that's something I would do. Main event, definitely continue to push guys like Austin Aries, James Storm, Bobby Roode, maybe bring in some new talent. I heard a rumor they were looking at El Generico a long time ago, but if they passed on him, then they're fools. Because now WWE's looking at him, and he's amazing. Chris 30548 Iffy, best on YouTube. Art of War Clan 1, finally hitting the Q&A video. Let's see, top 5 video games of all time. If you had one night to run Raw, what would you do to make it better, and what wrestling matches would you make to any pay-per-view of your choice if you had control of WWE for the night? Okay, with the top 5 video games of all time, it would be a lot of Mario games, so I'm just going to try and stick to one genre. For the platformer, Mario Bros. 3. For RPG, Skies of Arcadia. For first-person shooter, oh man, I got a lot of those. Team Fortress Classic. I like The Sims. And what else we got here? And Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. If I had one night to run Raw, what would I do to make it better? And what matches? I would have... And what matches would I make to any pay-per-view? I would probably start to build a CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan feud. I would push Dolph Ziggler. I would give him a feud with Randy Orton where he's going to go over. I wouldn't put him against Cena, even though that would get him over, just because it's too unbelievable. Like the fact that now he's going to have a match with Cena, and Cena has to fake an injury just to make it look legit. I actually would probably turn Sheamus heel again, because I think people are starting to think he's kind of stale. Yeah, I would rather see Sheamus turn heel again than Randy Orton. I know everybody wants a Randy Orton heel turn, but I'm not really interested in Randy Orton at all anymore. A heel turn would make things better, but it's still just not very interesting. Or he's not very interesting. So yeah, it's just, I mean, I feel like on Raw we see the same thing every single week with just the random tag matches. When it's CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan, those were great matches. Dolph Ziggler feuding with Randy Orton could be great as long as it's not one of those cheap ass wins. Like, have Dolph actually pull out a win on him, even if he has to hold the tights, something, and then eventually have him win. Let's see. Mark Henry coming back would be cool as a big monster. He could be a baby face and feud with Big Show. What else? Maybe bring out Brock Lesnar, have him lay someone out here, and then have The Undertaker make the save. That would be cool for a pay-per-view if that's where they wanted to build to WrestleMania. I don't know. It's really hard. I can't say what I would do just for one show because I would constantly be trying to think of where I would take it, what I would want to build to. As far as just pure matches, I would like to see Daniel Bryan versus CM Punk in just a straight up match on Raw. Would be great. Give them a lot of time, like 20 minutes, and just let them go out, not have a weird screwy finish. That's something I would like to see as a fan. I understand why they can't, but I do think that would be great. Yeah, and Dolph Ziggler versus Orton with Dolph going over would be great too. A push for Cody Rhodes, but maybe have Cody Rhodes beat Sheamus, Wade Barrett beat Sheamus, something like that in a good match. What do you do for a living? What do you do when you are not making vids or doing stuff for vids? By Randall Williams. I think that's pretty obvious. I'm clearly a stunt double for Brad Pitt. And what do I do when I'm not making vids or doing stuff for vids? Everything I do, I can use for a video, really. I mean, my favorite TV shows, I try to do videos on. When I watch movies or go to the movies, I try to do videos on. Something I really like doing is video games, but I haven't really had a lot of time to sit down and play those. So it's been tough. I like to go out to eat a lot. I like to, when I go around town, or I like to exercise, just all different types of stuff like that. But yeah, I do really enjoy playing video games. I just haven't had a lot of time to do that. I was playing, I can't remember which one it was, but Fire Emblem for the 3DS. It was one of those games you got for the Ambassador program, like the free downloadable game. I was playing Fire Emblem. I really enjoyed that game, and I was playing Link's Awakening for the Game Boy Color. Miss Lizzie Borden. Excuse me. Forgive me if I just missed his name or something, as I only discovered your channel pretty recently, but who was the guy who reviewed some of the Leprechaun and Friday the 13th movies with you? He was really funny. He was a friend of mine, and I wanted to try something different with the videos and try to, I guess, do it every week where we would review the Leprechaun movies, Friday the 13th movies, and what we were doing, we actually were starting to get a couple weeks ahead. We would record them, and we try to release one every Wednesday. So I thought that would be a good idea. We could go through all these series. And just in case something happened and one of us got sick or something and we couldn't make it that Wednesday, we would have a few recorded previously. And by Friday the 13th, 8, the day I uploaded that one, he couldn't make it. And the Friday the 13th, 9, I couldn't make it. I was busy with other stuff. And then by the 10th movie, it just, I think we couldn't get together for that day either. And I wanted to do it because I didn't have one ready to go. So that's the first one I did with my girlfriend. And after that, I just, for me personally, it's easier to just do them by myself. Because I do a lot of other videos, and instead of saying, okay, here's this day, I'm going to sit here, we're going to watch the movie. If he can't make it, I'm kind of screwed because I have other things to do. And if it's kind of like one of those things. So for me personally, it's just easier to do them by myself instead of having to make sure I have time to do it. So now it's just whenever I have time to watch the movie, I watch the movie, record the video. I don't have to try to do it on that day of the week. Do you accept compliments gracefully? If yes, then cool. Love your reviews. You crack me up, they go perfect with a bowl of ice cream. If not, too bad, because you crack me up and your reviews go perfect with a bowl of ice cream. Thanks. I appreciate that. Godson92, I have two if that's okay. What is your favorite so bad it's good movie? 2, what's your favorite movie quote ever? Favorite so bad it's good movie is The Room. When I first watched that, it was actually a request, and I did the review for that movie, and I was watching it, and I was like, what the hell is this? It sucks. But after watching the movie, I really enjoyed it. It was just really fun. What's your favorite movie quote ever? Keep the change, you filthy animal, from Home Alone, I guess. I don't know. Or hold on to your butts from Jurassic Park. What's your favorite wrestler currently and of all time? Y2J Break the Walls 1. Currently, WWE, Daniel Bryan. Favorite wrestler of all time, Shawn Michaels. Robert Didson, do you think it would make any difference if we had today's technology back during the Monday Night Wars? At what age did you become a pro wrestling fan? I'm not sure exactly how old I was. I was a fan of Ultimate Warrior. I liked Hulk Hogan. And I have pictures of me really young, dressed up like wrestlers. So I'm not sure the exact age. 6, 7, somewhere around there. Do you think it would make any difference for the technology? I guess it's more accessible now for people to get online and read dirt sheets and stuff. I read dirt sheets when I was in 8th grade, I think. That's when I discovered them, so it's not like that was really far away from the Monday Night Wars. I think it was right around the same time. The internet was booming at the same time as the Monday Night Wars. So I don't really think it would affect anything. There have still been some surprises. Can't think of any off the top of my head right now. But there have been a few surprises they've been able to pull out without the internet finding out about it. So it's not like it's impossible. I don't think anybody saw Devon being a member of the Aces and Eights. I know that's a crappy surprise, but it was a surprise. I mean, nobody picked up on that. They thought Devon was fired. So, I mean, there is a way to do it, and this is 2012. So in the Monday Night Wars, I don't really think it would have been a huge difference. I was reading the dirt sheets. I knew when Chris Jericho was coming back. I knew when the Ultimate Warrior was going to WCW, and it didn't hurt my enjoyment of some of those debuts. I knew when Big Show was going to come to WWE. So I don't really think it would have changed anything. The problem with wrestling now is it's not the internet. It's the fact that we don't want goofy-ass characters like Fandango. It's better when it's legit wrestling. Like Ring of Honor, I think. Characters can be great to an extent, but it's also, I think what would bring fans back into it is you make it like a sport again. Like with what MMA is, and everybody knows that wrestling is a work. I think you really need to bring in some guys like Daniel Bryan and use them as serious wrestlers. When you bring these guys in, don't try to make them all goofy and stuff. Just let them go out there and put on serious matches. He can still do his character and everything, but he doesn't need to be the comedy guy, if that makes any sense. Like R-Truth, he was great as a heel. I was enjoying his heel work. Now it's all about Little Jimmy, and it's stupid. That's his thing now. Like, he was still a good character who could wrestle and was a heel. And I think that's the problem with wrestling, is they try to do these goofy characters and people just don't give a shit. Nobody wants to see that. Who in their right mind, if you are over, I don't know, 9 years old, and you see this Fandango video come on TV, who is saying that guy's going to be awesome? The first thing I'm thinking is, okay, it could be an entertaining heel, maybe for a few weeks like Brodus Clay when he came back as the Funkasaurus, but after that, who's going to take this guy seriously? I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but just from the video packages, like Wade Barrett's video package, that was good. He was a fighter. He shows his nose and it's all jacked up and he looked like he could kick someone's ass. And then you see Fandango, may I cut in? What the hell are they thinking? Like, this is stupid shit, and you wonder why people don't want to watch your crap anymore. I just don't get it. I think I got those questions. Sean Mortimer, what was your first TNA pay-per-view you watched? The first one I actually bought and paid for. I can't remember. I saw some clips and stuff, but the first one I actually bought and paid for was Hardcore Justice, where they brought in EV 2.0. I paid my own money for that show, and then I bought that year's Bound for Glory. I think it was 10-10-10, my friend, from Abyss, and I remember because that's what he kept saying. And that was when they formed Immortal. So, the EV2 show actually got me. I was watching TNA, but I didn't really care that much about the pay-per-views. I wasn't watching religiously or anything. But when they brought in the EV2 guys, I was actually pretty invested in where they were going to go with this. I am a huge fan of ECW, and after watching that show, I think I won't be ordering another one. It was just, oh man, they're so old, so old. I don't know what I was expecting. But yes, they were very old, especially Raven, for God's sakes. Nick Glenn says, Q&A question, what is your favorite horror movie growing up as a kid? Probably Halloween. I like the original Halloween with Michael Myers. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Child's Play. What else? Freddy. Or Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. It's hard to really pick just one of them. If I had to, I liked Hellraiser. Just all of them, really. But if I had to pick just one, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'll never forget that. Were you a fan of Motor City Machine Guns in TNA, and do you think if the time presents itself, do you think they could reunite in the future? Probably not, because Saban's hurt and Shelly's gone. I was a fan of Motor City Machine Guns. They could have done a lot more with them, but it's not all TNA's fault. They had the injuries, and God, you gotta feel bad for Saban, because what are the odds? I mean, he comes back after, I think it was almost a year, and he gets the same injury on the other foot. Like, at this point, by the time he's healed up, Alex Shelley's probably going to be happy doing his own thing. I heard that he left because he got his degree and wanted to do something else, so I don't really see why he would come back at all. Especially when they know TNA's just not going to do anything with him anyways. If you were the booker for Ring of Honor, what are 5 changes you would make to make the product better? Booker for Ring of Honor. Oh, God. 5 changes. The wrestling is there. I would try to improve the TV show as much as possible. I guess the budget's what is holding them back. I'm not sure. But some of those promos just are really, really bad. The wrestling is there. They have great talent. But it's really hard to get angles across when you only have an hour a week, and then you have the streaming pay-per-views that are just failing because of the stream crashing. I would definitely try to make sure I never had another issue with the stream again. No matter what I had to do, I would make sure that was fixed. If I had to, I know Ring of Honor doesn't want to work with Dragon Gate, but if I could use their group of people, that's what I would do. You know, sometimes you just got to suck it up and swallow your pride and do what's best for the fans. I mean, you've shit on the fans with these crappy streams like 4 times this year. Get a better group of guys to do that. Also, what else would be good here? I mean, bring in guys that they don't seem to be using. I'd have no idea why they stopped using El Generico. That was pointless. The Young Bucks, they're not using anymore. That's crazy. They got rid of TJ Perkins. I know a lot of people don't like him, but I thought he was pretty good. And maybe do something like that. So I would fix the streams. Use these talented guys they haven't really been pushing. like the Young Bucks. They have a good tag team division, and I know they're trying to use these women wrestlers a little bit here and there. I don't really think that that's necessary when you only have an hour a week. I guess it's good to see a little bit of diversity, but I don't think they're going to be doing it often, so it's kind of just like a sideshow thing. So yeah, I would just cut that out and try to build up some more angles, some storylines. Like put guys in actual storylines. Roderick Strong and Michael Elgin have been kind of feuding for like this entire summer. And there's really nothing that's happened to try and build on that feud. They've just been kind of going back and forth with each other. And they really need to just build up some storylines. Scum, I don't know. Get rid of the road rage shows. Stop doing that crap. I think if they took Scum and really made them feel like they're there every week. I mean, Kevin Steen's the champion. And because of road rage and these past couple shows, it just doesn't even feel like he's got a presence on the show. It's like he's not even there. And they really need to make them feel like an evil stable that's attacking Ring of Honor. I would change that. I mean, they really need to come up with something for these guys to do. It feels like the same matches over and over again. Last week was a great episode. We had a great match with Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly. But they've been doing that match all year. That's the problem. They don't have enough feuds going on. Mike Bennett versus Mike Mondo because he kissed Maria? Really? It's just they really have to work on putting some angles over here. The wrestling is top notch though. I've watched a lot of wrestling and I still do not think there's a company that has better wrestling in the ring than Ring of Honor. They just go out there and they put on some amazing matches. If you haven't watched some of these matches, you really need to check it out. And 4, did you watch Tales from the Crypt TV show in the 90s? If so, what's your favorite episode? Mine's What's Cooking'. Yeah, I actually have about 5 seasons on DVD. My favorite episode would probably be... There's a few. Some that come to mind first are the one where the bank robber kills the cop after the cop handcuffs himself to him and he's got to drag his body through the desert. And the eagles or vultures start to circle around him. Another one is the Santa Claus that escaped from a mental institution. Damn, it's been a while since I watched the show. What are some good episodes of that? I think there was one where a guy was burned alive that sticks out in my mind. He was put... they were going to cremate his body, but it turned out he was actually alive in there or something. That was really sick. That terrified me as a kid. I was so afraid something would happen, I would die, they'd try to cremate me, and I would come back to life. But yes, I love Tales from the Crypt. I love all those shows where it's like a weekly horror episode, a fact or fiction. They still replay on Sci-Fi now, all that stuff. Why do people say, from Mr. Fact Stater, why do people say that WCW was crap when even in early 2000 the ratings was at a 3.5 and that was when they was head-to-head with the WWF Attitude Era, which makes me believe if the Attitude Era wasn't going on at the time, the ratings would be a 5 in 2000, just a year before they went out of business. I don't say WCW was crap. WCW became crap. I was a big fan of WCW. Even before the Monday Night Wars, I was still a WWF fan, primarily. But I did enjoy Sting, Vader, all of that stuff. However, once the Monday Night Wars really took off with the NWO coming out, it really just felt real. And it brought a lot of people in, and they were still doing good stuff with Goldberg, Raven, excuse me, the hardcore division. All that stuff I was really into. I thought it was very entertaining. I even liked the NWO Wolfpack. Finger Poke of Doom didn't bother me. I think it started to change when they brought in Bret Hart. because I was into the Hart Foundation, DX feud, all of that, and once they brought in Bret Hart and didn't really use him, you could just see the difference. But yeah, I was always a big fan of WCW. I think it just became crap. They started doing stuff like putting the belt on David Arquette and bringing in Jay Leno, and just, I don't know. It just, some stuff was still good, but they had a lot of bad stuff. And before, I would watch a lot of WCW, and very rarely would I change it back to WWF. Towards the end, I didn't watch that crap for free. I would get the pay-per-views for free, and I wouldn't watch them. I just could not watch WCW anymore. None of it interested me at all. Scott Steiner, I enjoyed Scott Steiner's work, but when he was the champion of WCW, I didn't care. I saw him, Jeff Jarrett. I saw these as mid-card guys. And when you're watching Raw and they have all these names, Rock, Austin, and they're doing amazing stuff. Mick Foley's falling off of cells and shit like that. I mean, it was just a much better product. And it just got better and better, and WCW got worse and worse, and I could not get into it. I mean, I liked Booker T and everything, but yeah, when they're the main event, I didn't even watch it when Sid Vicious came back, and I was a huge Psycho Sid fan, but I couldn't even get into it. It was just horrible. Oh, they killed it. Alright, I'm going to try to pause this video and take a short break here because I still have a lot of questions to go through, so I will be right back. I have no idea how to edit my videos, so hopefully I don't have to do this in two parts. I'm going to try and combine them. Oh man, I went to get myself some coffee and I checked the time on the first part of this that I did, and it's like 51 minutes. That's insane. That's going to take me forever to upload. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. This may be the second part. I'm not sure how I'm going to upload this yet. UCD3AD. How do you plan on beating Jeff Hardy at Turning Point? You're a wrestler, not a ladder climber. That is an awesome comment right there. That is from Austin Aries on TNA before the Turning Point pay-per-view. HOU12396. When did you first get into wrestling? What was the first wrestling match you ever saw? Who is your favorite wrestler? I kind of answered those already. I was really young when I first got into wrestling, probably 6 or 7. First match you ever saw? I want to say it involved Jake the Snake Roberts, but I can't really remember like the first match, but I want to say it was Jake Roberts was involved. And favorite wrestler, really tough. One of my favorites of all time growing up, not based on ring work or anything, but I really liked Raven. I was always a big fan of his Sabu. Now, I would say of all time, probably Shawn Michaels or Ric Flair. But yeah, there's different types of favorites. You got the favorite because he's just that good, like Shawn Michaels. And then you got your favorite who you just have always liked, always been a fan of. And for me, that was always Raven, Sabu, those types of guys. I really like Rob Van Dam, but I can't watch it anymore, man. It's the same thing, but slower. I've seen it for years. When did you... HOU12396. I hear WWE is thinking about having a SummerSlam or WrestleMania in England. How would you book a SummerSlam or WrestleMania in England? Well, I guess I'd do what WWE does and throw William Regal on the show. Use Wade Barrett, start to build him up as a tweener just for that show. Not push him over into full-blown babyface, but have him as more of a tweener just for that show. Because you know he's going to get cheered. So he's going to have to go against somebody who is a heel. And if you want to continue pushing him like that, you can. You can turn him full-blown face after. And if you don't, then you can turn him back to being a heel. So it works both ways. But other than that, I would probably do it just like I would any other wrestling show. Just because it's in England, I mean, You're definitely going to have guys like Barrett, and because he's probably going to be used, you would want to do something with him character-wise to change it up. But other than that, yeah, it would be just like any other show. Kyle Christopher says, Ring, what's your favorite scary movie? Like Scream, I guess. And for me, of all time, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. But yeah, I've got a lot of favorite scary movies, but overall I'm going to go with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's just perfect in every way, every level. I think it's disturbing, and I think a lot of people feel a strong emotion watching that movie. Child's Play is a great movie, but you're not going to get that feeling when you watch it like you would Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It just really brings you a feeling of dread, and it's also due to the fact that it could happen. It feels like a realistic movie. Croon, do you dream about being recognized for your movie reviews like movie reviewers and papers magazines? A couple hundred views does not change the world. You do a fine job, but what are your plans for the future with this channel? Movie nerds all over the world read reviews of movies every day, so the target group audience is enormous. I don't know. I just kind of like doing reviews, and it's something I enjoy doing. I would like to be able to do it forever. So I don't really have any major goal. I mean, I guess more people watching would be awesome. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a huge plan for the movie reviews or anything like that. It's just something I enjoy doing. I watch a lot of movies because I am a big fan of those, just like I do the TV shows. So I like to do my opinion on what I thought of this movie, and if people enjoy watching it, then that's great. HOU12396. Are you ever going to do a WrestleMania review series, Survivor Series, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble? Yes, I do plan to do those. I wanted to do... Which one did I want? I think I wanted to do Royal Rumble. And before I started making these videos, just in my own time, for fun, I watched all the old Royal Rumbles. Every single one of them. I just watched every show. And it was just for fun. It wasn't to do a video. I wasn't even doing YouTube videos at the time. So because I did that, I thought it would be cool to do a Royal Rumble review series. But I was only watching the Royal Rumble match itself. I didn't watch the entire show, so it would take a long time. But yeah, I do plan to do that at some point in the future. Go through, watch all the Royal Rumbles. I picked that because it's my favorite show. I actually have a review. It's audio only. It's one of the first videos I ever did of Royal Rumble 2006, I think, and it was pretty fun to do. But yeah, that Royal Rumble match with Undertaker shooting lightning bolts, it was kind of silly. Zombie Zoo 1000. What type of movie do you like better? Survival movies like ATM and Frozen, or found footage movies like Grave Encounter? Both are two of my top favorites right there. I loved Frozen. I liked ATM. Grave Encounters was awesome. I love found footage movies. I like Paranormal Activity. I know a lot of people don't really care much for it, but I'm a huge fan of those, the found footage types and the survival movies. So it's really hard to say. Saw is kind of a survival movie, I think. But I actually have found a lot, if you have Netflix, there's a lot of instant watching movies where you can, they're all survival movies. There's one with Sabrina the Teenage Witch, I think. I hope I'm not imagining this, but I think it's called 9 or something. And it's about these people who wake up and they're locked in a room, and as it goes, you find out more and more about it, why they're all there, and I love that type of movie. And there's a good bit of them on there. So it's really hard for me to pick between the two because I like them both for different reasons. But I guess I would have to go with survival movies because I tend to watch more of those. Robin, Meagner, Meaganer. If CM Punk and Mick Foley got in a bar fight in real life, who do you think would win? Mick Foley would beat the brakes off his ass. Mick Foley is one of those guys who's really nice, but if you push him, he could snap. And I think when we see him as Mankind and Cactus Jack and he snaps and he does bang bang, I think in a real life fight, I could see Mick Foley snapping like that and starting to scream at people, and he can take a lot of punishment, and he's a big dude. And I think that CM Punk's younger, he's in great shape, but Mick Foley's just one of those guys. He's old, he's got experience, and he wouldn't take any shit. I could see him just slapping him down. I like them both, though. I'm not saying Mick Foley should kick CM Punk's ass. I just think that if it was a fictional setting, they were in a fight, Mick Foley would kick his ass. Kick MMA 1. Top 10 favorite shows of all time. Example, Dexter Lost. Two of my favorites right there. Top 10 favorite shows. Married with Children. You can't beat it. I liked Home Improvement a lot. Still watch Home Improvement on TBS late at night. In fact, pretty much every night I am watching Married with Children and Home Improvement. I loved Lost. I know they're trying to find a show to replace Lost, and they haven't been able to do it yet. That show was just phenomenal. Loved every season. John Locke was a super badass. Dexter's a great show. It's coming to an end soon, though, so I'm going to have to find a replacement for that. Walking Dead's been great. I liked Rescue Me with Dennis Leary. Oh, man. So many TV shows. Seinfeld's one of my favorites. Scrubs is one of my favorites. Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I'm trying to think of what I have on DVD. I liked Boston Legal a lot. Some other great TV shows. Some stuff I was a big fan of growing up that I watch now and I can't stand, like Boy Meets World. Oh man, Corey is so annoying. I can't watch that anymore. Him and his brother, was his name Eric, I think, were just so damn annoying now. And I watch other stuff like Family Matters. I watch that now, and I'm just thinking this is so beyond ridiculous with these experiments he comes up with. Stefan Urkel. So yeah, I have a lot of favorite TV shows, but it's really tough to pick just a top 10. I would really have to go through and give that a lot of thought. I liked a lot of old Nickelodeon shows too that I thought were great. Salute Your Shorts. Pete and Pete, that was completely out there. Tons of great shows. The SES Man 3, cool man, thanks. I'm glad your channel is starting to get big. Cena Sucks 0161. Who is your most overrated and underrated current wrestler and why? Overrated? Who do I think is overrated? Underrated current wrestler. It's tough because the internet sometimes feels like a different community than the people watching the regular TV shows. And I think a lot of the guys I like, Daniel Bryan, Dolph Ziggler, aren't looked at as underrated currently. Maybe by WWE they're seen as underrated, but as far as the fans go, I think a lot of us enjoy their work and would like to see more of them. So I can't really say underrated. I think these guys deserve bigger pushes, but I can't really think of anybody that I like that I think fans haven't really taken to. Robbie E. I know he gets a lot of hate, but I enjoy Robbie E. I think he's decent in the ring, and he does an awesome job selling. He sells it like he's just been hit with a shotgun, and I find him entertaining. It's not his fault he's been stuck with a crappy Jersey Shore gimmick, but he makes it work. And even when you thought he was gone and out the door, he comes back with Big Robbie T, and they've been doing that for like almost a year or something. So I think Robbie E is kind of underrated. Overrated, I don't really want to say John Cena because pretty much the majority of fans don't like him. So I can't really say he's overrated. I think he's a great worker as far as he does. His job is demanding. He's either doing appearances on radio shows, wrestling, the Make-A-Wish stuff. You have to respect John Cena. In-ring work, I think some people overrate CM Punk. I think when he says best in the world, they think he means that literally, and I don't think CM Punk actually considers himself the best wrestler in the world. He's a great wrestler. He's great on the mic. But I think some fans tend to overrate CM Punk. He's not the best in the world. People who say that haven't watched a lot of wrestling as far as stuff outside of WWE and TNA. There are some Japanese guys that would blow his ass out the water, and that's just the truth. As far as ring work goes, Davey Richards, I mean, you don't even have to go to Japan to find somebody who's a better wrestler, but still, I'm a huge fan of CM Punk, and people are going to take that and think that I don't like him, but that's not the case. I just think some fans overrate him by saying he's the best of all time or something, and that's his gimmick. He's a heel. He doesn't really believe that. Adam Hollingsworth, why is horror your favorite movie type? I kind of talked about this a little earlier. It's kind of the same reason people ride roller coasters. Horror movies just give you a different feeling than you get from other movies. It's exciting, it's different, and it's just it gives you a certain feeling depending on the type. You got the slasher types, you got the haunted house types like Amityville Horror, The Shining, things like that, and there's just so many broad genres of it. So you do have slashers, found footage, all of that monster movies, Godzilla type stuff is kind of horror. So it's just unique. And it's something I really enjoy watching because you can do so much more with a horror movie. You don't have to make it like all realistic or anything and action sequences. It can be anything you want it to be, and it's aliens from outer space, monsters from the sea, all types of stuff, zombies, ghosts, and I really enjoy it. Insane Tombstone 96, who's going to win at the Royal Rumble, CM Punk or The Rock? This is tough. Personally, I think The Rock's going to win. What I would like to see happen is CM Punk win, just because The Rock's not going to stick around, and I think whoever ends up beating... Let me see if I can move this up a little bit. I think whoever ends up beating the CM Punk's long reign as champion is going to get a big push out of that. And I don't think someone like The Rock needs that push when they're already so over. So I would much rather see CM Punk beat The Rock and lose it to someone else. I would have really liked to see Daniel Bryan beat Punk, because beating that reign would really launch him. And why not make two guys at once? Instead of making one guy with CM Punk and then having him drop it to The Rock, which does nobody any favors. So it's kind of like they're not thinking long term. They're thinking, how can we make a lot of money at WrestleMania this year? When if they did this, they could make more money in the future. I don't understand that thinking. They're all about the right here and now. They have been patient with CM Punk. He hasn't been drawing the best ratings, and they have been patient with him over that. But I still think they need to go long term. You have to have some patience. Insane Tombstone 96. Who's a better wrestler, Daniel Bryan or Kevin Steen? Easily Daniel Bryan. I think Kevin Steen would actually agree with that himself. Both are great, but Daniel Bryan is awesome. He's amazing, and what WWE lets him do is not nearly what he's capable of. He has so much potential. And when you see Chris Hero, this Cassius Ono, whatever they're calling him now in NXT, when you see this guy, he's capable of going out there and doing some amazing stuff and putting on some great matches. And if they would just let him and Daniel Bryan go out there and wrestle, they would steal the show easily. But I know when he comes back, comes to WWE, it's not. They just limit them. Adam Hollingsworth, who is the best wrestler of all time in your opinion? Best wrestler of all time. If I'm not going by like my personal favorite, like who's my favorite wrestler, just who is the best wrestler of all time, all around, Kurt Angle. I think he is the best. You cannot... So it's hard for a guy to come in from another sport, even if it is amateur wrestling, and make it in pro wrestling, and Kurt Angle blew everybody away. He was having the best matches, and just there's not much else you can say about Kurt Angle. He's amazing. And he's still going out there and doing these crazy moonsaults and shit. Who's the best wrestler of all time? Young Buck 445. How tall are you? I am 6'1". Adam Hollingsworth. As a younger wrestling fan, I don't remember most of WCW or the Attitude Era. My point is, who is the best wrestler of WCW and the Attitude Era? Of WCW? The Yeti. Oh man, no. Who was the best wrestler in WCW? WCW had some great wrestlers, but because a lot of them jumped ship, like Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, Chris Jericho, I'm going to go with Sting, just because I think he had a great character and he was with WCW from the very beginning and never left them. And his crow gimmick and all of that was badass. At the time, when I was growing up watching the Attitude Era, you had so many fans of Sting, the NWO, DDP. WCW was doing some great stuff, but Sting just always made it feel special with that build to the Hogan match. I still watch Starrcade 97, the entrances with Hogan and Sting, and when Sting comes out and it plays that music and it shows that little laser video, and Sting comes out and he's not like, no expression, just the painted face, and he's just walking to the ring, and you just get this feeling that Hogan's this evil taking over WCW and Sting is just there to cleanse it. I don't know, it's hard to put into words, but that entrance gives me goosebumps still. But yeah, I'm not saying Sting is the best wrestler ever, but in WCW, I think he really was. He was one of their top guys, and he never left them. And in the Attitude Era, who is the best wrestler of WCW and the entire Attitude Era? The best wrestler of the entire Attitude Era would have to be Stone Cold. There would be no Attitude Era without Stone Cold Steve Austin. Had some great names, a ton of talent, but Steve Austin is really what launched it. Lazar Head, what's your real name and what do you think of the new Fandango gimmick of Johnny Curtis? Daniel is my name. And the Fandango gimmick, I kind of talked about briefly earlier. It's one of those things where it looks like it could be entertaining, but in a goofy, this guy's never going to be a main eventer sort of way. So it looks funny, but it's not going to work. It's kind of like, what was that guy who came out on that little rolly thing where you roll, and it's like that weird, I can't even remember what those things are called, but Simon Dean, and he was like the health guy, and he had vitamins and stuff. When you give somebody a gimmick like that, you're basically saying, here, enjoy the mid-card for the rest of your life. Because it's horrible idea. I mean, he's not going to be a big star. He may help the mid-card somewhat. I hope it works and it gets over, but I'm not expecting a lot with Fandango. Mark Lay 18. Do you think that right now WWE is in its worst state ever, or at least since the mid-90s? Actually, and I'll go ahead and finish this one. And also, I would recommend that you watch some PWG shows. PWG is like the best from ROH, Dragon Gate, Chikara. Just really think that you would like their product. I have watched some PWG shows, and it is good. I really like it because they have great wrestling, but it's also not taken so seriously. One weird thing about PWG is how packed, how close the fans are to the ring. I always thought that was kind of strange, but I do enjoy PWG, and I don't know if I would say WWE is in its worst state ever, because they are still, I mean, the ratings are down, but I still feel like a lot of people talk about the product, and that's better than people just not caring at all. And the mid-90s I actually liked. I didn't think it was that bad. That's when I was really getting into it heavy, was the mid-90s, around 95, and I didn't think it was that bad of a show. I mean, excuse me, they had some goofy characters and stuff, but I was also a kid, so it's kind of like watching it with different eyes. And I think right now WWE has talent, and they're bringing in some good names. Tyler Black, Jon Moxley, Chris Hero. I heard they're looking at El Generico. They're working on bringing in some real wrestlers. And I think if they focus on the wrestling, Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, these types of guys, give them storylines, angles, they could turn this around. But WrestleMania made a lot of money, so I don't think it's in its worst state ever. They're still doing better than everyone else. I mean, that's the truth of it. I wish Ring of Honor could get more publicity. Samuel Couch says, make sure I didn't miss anyone here. Samuel Couch says, this is one of my favorite channels, so I will ask a question that's been bugging me for a while. I thought I seen John Morrison fighting Hogan as Aces and Eights on Impact one night, and I know him and Chris Masters are buddies, so do you think he will join TNA at Turning Point? That would be incredible, but I don't see that happening. I don't see it happening either. I think John Morrison has a door with WWE that he can go back when he wants to. I think he wants to take the time off. He was unhappy, and I think why TNA would be good because he could work a lighter schedule, and it would help TNA. But I think he's kind of enjoying working indie dates when he wants to, not really being on TV. And he probably would rather work a few indie dates and then go back to WWE when he feels ready than go to TNA, sign a contract, be stuck there, and possibly hurt future chances with WWE. Samuel Couch, when will there be an Impact 2 video game? I need to know. I don't know what's up with that. I didn't even play the first one for the Wii or the DS, so I don't know, but I would like to see another Impact video game come out just to see what they put up for the roster. You have the Aces and Eights. Are they all going to wear masks? Like, what's going to happen with that? That would be interesting to see just for the crazy roster, but yeah, I think their priority right now is trying to make better shows and probably not too worried about video games. XScorp18X, is there a way to talk to you one-on-one other than YouTube? I do have Skype, but I'm not on there a lot. The Skype name is Suicide Dive Wrestling. I actually already added UScorp onto Skype, but I'm really not on there a lot. I don't have Facebook. I don't check my Twitter often, so the best way to talk to me one-on-one probably is just the private messages on YouTube. Stops Copies Me 91. What's up, man? I know you do manga reviews each week. My question is, do you like Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z? And if so, is it the manga, TV show, or both? For this one, which is rare because I typically only read manga, don't really watch a lot of anime, it is both because I didn't even know what manga was, and I was already a huge Dragon Ball Z fan. When Dragon Ball Z came on Cartoon Network, it blew up big time. When I was in high school, everybody loved Dragon Ball Z. And I remember we would draw pictures of the characters and stuff. And I remember this one kid brought a Dragon Ball comic book. And they had actually made Dragon Ball Z, because it was so popular, into a comic book, like an American Spider-Man comic book. So I still didn't even know what manga was until I started watching One Piece. And then I found out about manga, and that Dragon Ball Z was based off this long-running comic book Japanese manga series. So I started to read the manga, and it's much better. I think a lot of fans watch the anime, and some people will get turned off by the powering up and the grunting and how it takes them like 10 minutes to power up. And the reason for that is when you watch an anime show, they're following the manga, and they have to stretch it out because the manga is written one chapter a week, and an episode is like 2.5, 3 chapters. So eventually they end up catching up to the anime, or the anime catches up to the manga, and then they have to come up with filler, and it's not as good. So they tend to drag out stuff in episodes, and that's why in Dragon Ball Z you see a lot of people grunting for like 5 minutes. And I prefer manga because it takes out all of that filler, it takes out all of that, and you can just read it at your own pace. And plus, it's the artist's original interpretation. It's what they want you to see, and I just prefer that. I would rather read what they intend everybody to read instead of extra filler that's added in, extra moves and fights. Like Naruto has a ton of filler, and it kind of kills my enjoyment when I'm watching the anime and I see the fight and I'm like, that didn't happen in the manga. That's an extra move. So I don't know, it bothers me. I know it's kind of a nitpick thing, but I just prefer manga. Honor and Power 311. Do you think that the WWE will get more views if they bring back some old matches like 3 Stages of Hell? WWE will get more views if they make their product better. They could have crazy matches, maybe get a few extra buys for a pay-per-view, but that's it. Those people aren't going to keep tuning in. And they kill off the gimmicks. I mean, Hell in a Cell does not need to be a pay-per-view every year. Hell in a Cell should only be a blow-off to a big feud. And it should have blood. Like Extreme Rules with Brock Lesnar versus Cena. That wasn't a stipulation. That was just an amazing match. And Cena starts bleeding in the match, and it was just, everybody loved that. It felt real. And now I feel like they kind of just take something and they just kind of do it to death over and over again. Hell in a Cell was really popular, so let's do it every year. Elimination Chamber, let's do it every year. Jericho Rocker 40-48, just another reason why you're arguably the best wrestling reviewer here on YouTube. I can't remember what I said at that moment. Jericho Rocker 1234. Oh man, I feel like I'm losing my voice. Who did WWE waste that had more main event potential, Bobby Lashley or Chris Masters? I didn't really care much for either. Bobby Lashley, I just thought was kind of bland and generic. Chris Masters had a good look, but he wasn't really a great wrestler when he first came. I would say that Chris Masters could have been something because he eventually became a good worker and then they got rid of him. So I'm not really sure. I guess Chris Masters was kind of a waste. They could have at least done some mid-card stuff with him. Bobby Lashley is one of those guys they bring in, they push, and then they just either get rid of him, they don't use him right. Something happens, but I don't know. I prefer wrestlers like CM Punk who want to be wrestlers. And I never really got the feeling that Bobby Lashley wanted to be a wrestler. And with Chris Masters, I felt like he wanted to be a bodybuilder. And he eventually did want to be a wrestler. But when he first came, I felt like this guy just wants to be a bodybuilder. He doesn't give a shit about wrestling, like Mason Ryan. He wants to be a bodybuilder. He's just doing this because they throw a lot of money at him because he's big. He's never going to be a great wrestler because of that. If you could rebook the CM Punk walkout angle from 2011, how would you book it and who would Punk feud with upon return in detail? Well, I wouldn't have brought him back 2 weeks later, and I would have Punk, I guess he would have to, he was feuding with Cena at the time, but because of that promo, he was kind of turning into a babyface type character. Or a tweener, anti-hero, is what I should say. So I would have him continue to feud with Cena. And because Cena is the face of the WWE, and he basically stands for the WWE, and Punk was tired of the WWE, he wanted change, I would have him come back and set him up with a Ring of Honor stable. Not right off the bat, but maybe have Punk get a rematch with Cena. Maybe a month later he's got the title and he says, WWE's throwing all this money at me or something, and maybe do something with Ring of Honor. Maybe have him actually appear on a Ring of Honor show. Doesn't have to be televised or anything, but it's kind of like a one-time deal. And it's win-win for both, because people will say, hey, this Punk angle's legit. He really stole the title and went to another company. And for Ring of Honor, it's CM Punk. So it would be win-win for both, and I would have that happen. I mean, it wouldn't be a big deal. They let him mention them on TV, and they used their footage for the DVD release, so I mean they could work something out. And then when he comes back, he says, all right, he's going to fight Cena. He's not with the WWE, but he's going to wrestle Cena again, and then have one of the Ring of Honor guys attack. Let's say Chris Hero. Then you slowly start to build this feud. You have Antonio and Chris Hero, Kings of Wrestling. They could go after the tag titles. You have Tyler Black. You could bring in Colt Cabana. Colt Cabana would have to do an overhaul, though. He couldn't do his comedy thing. So they would either have to change him or not bring him in at all. It wouldn't really bother me if they didn't bring in Colt Cabana. But yes, use the Kings of Wrestling. Use Tyler Black. Have Daniel Bryan, who I think was still a babyface at the time, say, Punk, I'm from the same place as you, but I'm not going to let you take over the WWE. I've worked too hard to get here. And then have Daniel Bryan turn and join CM Punk as well. And then you create a heel stable that's cool again, like the NWO was. That's just off the top of my head. I've never really put a lot of thought into it before, but that's something I think would be cool. Which dream match would you rather see, Daniel Bryan versus Bret Hart or Kurt Angle versus Dolph Ziggler? That's actually a really tough one. I would have to go... If we're talking about in their prime, I actually think Kurt Angle versus Dolph Ziggler would be the better match. The WWE dropped the ball with The Miz since he went from headliner of WrestleMania 27 to being stuck in mid-card 1 year later. I enjoy The Miz's work, but I was surprised he made it to the headliner of WrestleMania in the first place. And that's just the truth. I don't think he has the ability to carry that. He's a good talker and everything. Maybe if WWE actually built him up, but Miz still has to go the rest of the way. And even though he is a great talker, I don't think he could have kept that momentum. I don't think he could have stayed at the top and brought something new every single week and carved out his niche. I just don't think it would be possible. But yeah, I do think they did drop the ball because he could be better than what he is now. That is true. If you could be a killer, this is from TBH Serial Killer. If you could be a killer like Dexter, what would your alias be? What would be your motive, and what would you use for weapons? That is a weird question. I don't know. I guess I would be a vigilante, and I would use candlestick in the billiard room. I don't know. That's weird. It's an interesting question, but I don't know. I've never really thought about that. But yeah, I guess a vigilante like Batman. Alias, the Avenger, or something. I'd have to think about that some more. Sunil A. Patel. Are you going to set up a second YouTube channel as you've increased the number of reviews you are doing? I thought about setting up a second YouTube channel, but it wasn't for TV shows or anything. It was actually for video game reviews, because YouTube has this thing where you can't do a playthrough of a video game, even with commentary, and because it's all copyrighted. So even if I buy the game, excuse me, even if I buy the game and I record this footage, it's still considered copyrighted content because I didn't create this video game. So I have thought about setting up a second YouTube channel just for video game reviews where I'll actually play through the video game. But yeah, for TV shows and movies and all that extra stuff I'm doing now, I probably won't anytime soon. Two questions by Dylan Villa. Do you think Jeff Hardy will ever return to WWE, and what could you do to completely change the WWE? What would I do? I think Jeff Hardy... I don't know. I would like to see Jeff Hardy return, and I do think it's possible, and because I think they are interested in him, that it will happen. I don't know how soon, though, because Jeff Hardy seems to be very happy with the TNA schedule, and I can understand that. I hear he's doing okay financially, so why would he want to go back to work for Vince where he's going to have to work all these shows every single week? And it's just a grueling schedule. I mean, you have to really want it. And right now he seems to be happy. TNA's doing things to make him happy, so I don't think it's going to happen soon, but I do eventually see him going back. And to me, Jeff Hardy will always be a WWE guy. And I think he will probably be in the Hall of Fame at some point. But what would I do to completely change the WWE is I would hire new writers. I would fire absolutely every person they have in creative, and I would hire people who watch wrestling. Some fans don't really know about the creative. God, I'm losing my voice. I'm not used to talking for this long. A lot of fans don't really know like how the backstage stuff works with WWE. And for a while, it was actually like being a wrestling fan, knowing anything about wrestling, actually prevented you from getting a job working there. They wanted TV writers. They wanted people who worked on soap operas. They hired Freddie Prinze Jr. to be their producer. These people don't know shit about wrestling. And if I was running WWE, that's the first thing I would do to change it. Vince Russo may not have the best ideas, but working with Vince McMahon, they came up with some great stuff together. And when I was watching the Attitude Era growing up, and even before then, everybody had matches and feuds and storylines and angles. When you would watch a pay-per-view, it was like everybody had a reason to wrestle each other with Goldust, Headbangers, New Age Outlaws. Things happened to build up a card. Now, you have the main event and nothing else. You've got the main event on SmackDown, the main event on Raw, and everything else is really just filler. They don't take time to build a feud. Cesaro and R-Truth hate each other and are feuding right now. Why? There's absolutely no reason. And that's one reason people didn't give a shit about their Survivor Series match. That's the truth, and that's another reason they only have 5 matches announced for one of their biggest shows of the year, because they don't have anything for everybody else to do. And they hire these writers, and it's not that complicated. They could easily do a better job hiring somebody like Jim Cornette. And who else could they get? I mean, look at some of these other companies like Gabe Booking, Dragon Gate, Evolve, and some people are not necessarily big Jim Cornette fans. They're not happy with what he did in Ring of Honor. And some people don't like the way Gabe books Dragon Gate and didn't like the way he booked Ring of Honor. But they're still people who know wrestling. And I think that says a lot, and it would change the product dramatically, I think. It would be much better. What advice would you give to a person that is wanting to start uploading review videos like you? It would be greatly appreciated by DT Shuffler 2011. Just be yourself, start doing videos, and even if you're not like really confident in them at first, just stick with it and you will improve. The more you do, the better you will get. You just have to stick with it. Some people start doing videos and then they stop, or you have to be consistent, I think, is the key to it. So if you plan to start doing it, expect to do it for every single Raw. The J-Rock Freak, have you seen Booker T's Reality of Wrestling on here? And if so, what do you think of it? I haven't watched any of that. I did watch Booker T's Fave 5 videos and his... I think he did a Q&A at one point too, so... that's really all I've seen from his channel, but it was entertaining. I wish he'd do another Fave 5 video. Collapsing Faith, what is your real name? Daniel. Collapsing Faith. Also, what happened to the guy you used to do Raw reviews with? Same thing as the horror movies. It's just easier for me to do them by myself. So it's something I wanted to try because I was doing Raw reviews every week, and Raw is one of the biggest shows of the week. TNA Impact's another big show, but I thought it would be fun to try to have another person on there with Raw, and it's just much easier for me to do them by myself. And sometimes people can't make it. Sometimes I have to wait a little bit before I record. And Raw is 3 hours now. So if I start recording around 12, that's pretty late. And it's just much easier for me to take my time and do it by myself. So I'm probably not going to have anybody else in videos for a while. Cool Dude 336. Would you rather be in a fist... Or I already answered that one. Operation Anime 262. Have you ever been made fun of for liking watching wrestling? If yes, then who by? Family or friends? P.S. Sorry for the negative question. Yes and no. The funny thing about this question is I never got made fun of for liking watching wrestling, because when I watched wrestling, everybody else watched wrestling. It was the Attitude Era. And most people I know liked wrestling at some point. However, people nowadays say, you're still watching that crap. That's the response I get from a lot of people. All those people who used to watch it in the Attitude Era don't really give a shit anymore. And it's because of the product. It's not like they're saying, oh, you still watch pro wrestling. They're saying, you still watch that crap? It's horrible. And that's the response I get. Let's see here. Jericho Rocker 1234. What are some of your favorite SummerSlam matches of all time? Which match would you rather see? Kurt Angle versus Sheamus or AJ Styles versus Wade Barrett? I would probably go with Kurt Angle versus Sheamus. I think that would be the better match. Both would be interesting, but yeah, I would have to go with Kurt Angle versus Sheamus. And favorite SummerSlam match of all time? I'm trying to think here. I can't ever really remember matches from certain shows like that. I'm just really bad with those timelines. I think SummerSlam 97, where Steve Austin broke his neck, I had on tape. And it was before I started to get every single pay-per-view on tape for free. And I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. My mom worked with this lady whose son would buy every pay-per-view, WCW and WWF, and record them on VHS. And he would let me borrow them, and I'd watch all the shows for free. And before I started getting those, I remember ordering SummerSlam 97, and I recorded that myself. And I watched that show over and over again. And I think that was the one where it was like Brian Pillman versus Goldust, loser had to wear a dress, British Bulldog versus Ken Shamrock, Austin versus Owen Hart, and I thought that was a pretty good show. But I can't really remember like any specific SummerSlam matches. I also remember they had this thing on that show where Sonny and Sable, they were doing this giveaway where they had a coffin full of money. And they had these two kids who won the contest, and they got to pick from this giant board of keys. There's like 500 keys, and they get to choose one key and open the case, and if the coffin pops open, they win all this money. The odds were so against these guys. It was like, what did you think? I think part of the contest was obviously they got to go to SummerSlam, and they got some SummerSlam gear, and they got to meet Sable and Sonny and all of that. But there was no way in hell they were winning this money. I mean, there was like 500 keys, and only one of them opened the lock. It was crazy. People without a face, will the WWE get more talent, and do you think they need it? I think they have enough talent now, especially with Ambrose, Rollins, Daniel Bryan, Cody Rhodes, Damian Sandow, Cesaro. They have talent. And they desperately need it. They just really need to push some guys. They need to build some guys up. And I understand, not everybody can be a main eventer. You have to have a solid mid-card. But it's like they do one thing and then they go backwards. They finally stopped pushing Brodus Clay. And it kind of feels like WWE refuses to give up. When they want something to work, they will not stop until it works the way they want it to. And that's one of their problems. They just will not stop. If the fans aren't liking somebody, they don't give a shit. They're going to keep going with that person and shove them down your throats until you accept it. And that is not the way to run a business. You make people happy. And they wonder why ratings are bad. Do you think Panthers x Yankees 89. If Punk hasn't lost the title by the time your 500th video debuts, when do you ultimately think he'll drop the title? Probably at the Royal Rumble to The Rock. I don't think it's the best idea, but they seem to want to have The Rock win the title. And I don't know. I'd say have Punk beat Rock, look stronger, and then eventually have him drop to the title to a guy they're building up like Daniel Bryan. Build a new star. Or start to build up Wade Barrett and have him beat... Well, he's a heel, so that wouldn't work. Who would they have on the babyface side that they could... I don't know, really. It's actually looking kind of weak on the babyface side. Randy Orton doesn't need it. Kofi... No, it wouldn't work. Yeah, they really just need to build some guys up. Daniel Bryan is turning into a babyface, though, and having him beat Punk for the title would really give him a strong push. TV Girl, what is your #1 all-time favorite horror film? And are you a college student? No, I went to college for... when I got out of high school for like 2 years, took classes. I had planned to transfer, but then my priorities changed, and I didn't really know what I was going to school for. I just kind of went because that's what you do. I didn't really have something I wanted to be from college, and I actually started writing, and I wanted to become a writer, so I kept going to college, but instead of taking regular classes, I would take creative writing classes, more English classes, and things like that. What is your #1 all-time favorite horror film? Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think it's just the best all around and delivers the most intense emotions. There are movies like Hostel and things like that that probably would give you a sense of this is disturbing shit, but I don't really like those because to me it feels like the focus is more on the gore and on the torture scenes, and it's kind of a lazy way to do it. The premise is great, but what it boils down to is let's watch someone get tortured for 15 minutes. And I think that's kind of a lazy way to do it, so I don't really care much for gore just for gore's sake. But, alright, I'm going to try and stop the video here again. And this may be part 2, or I may be able to squeeze all these together somehow with YouTube. So I will be right back. Alright guys, I am back for the last part of this Q&A video, and just looking at the times of these first two, it's going to be a really long time to upload this. So I thought about splitting it up into 3 parts because it looks like I can't upload the whole thing together. But then I was thinking it doesn't really make sense because I'm doing this for the 500th video, so I'm probably just going to make this the whole thing. So it will be very long, but I think that's probably the best way to do it. So I just got another question here from Justin Poole. Let me double check that. Yep. Do you listen to Tech 9, ICP, and underground rap music? Actually, I don't. I did listen to some ICP when I was in high school. I thought it was pretty good. It was the Great Milenko, and then I liked the Jekyll Brothers. But after that, it got a little goofy, I guess. It wasn't as good, in my opinion anyways. And I just kind of fell out of the whole thing. I like those 2 CDs, but I think a lot of the reason I like those CDs, the older stuff and the Great Milenko and Jekyll Brothers, was I never really heard anything like that before, and it was unique. But yeah, I don't really listen to anything like that anymore. Your top 5 favorite indie matches: Ring of Honor, Chikara, Dragon Gate USA, PWG. That's another one that's tough for me because it is hard for me to think of specific matches. Like right off the top of my head, I know Dragon Gate USA had a great match this year with Tozawa and I can't remember the other guy's name, but it was that show they did, and it was like a $1.99 pay-per-view to try to get some new fans into the show. And I really enjoyed that match. That one definitely sticks out in my mind. I wish I could remember the other Japanese guy's name, though. Chikara. Let's see. Yeah, I can't really think of any specific matches. I know Ring of Honor's got tons of great matches. Punk Danielson, Punk Samoa Joe. Let's see. Nigel McGuinness versus Danielson. Michael Elgin versus Kevin Steen was a recent one that I thought was a great match. Davey Richards versus Michael Elgin was a great match. Davey Richards versus a lot of guys is always a great match. Some of the Ladder War matches are crazy. Steen, Generico, Briscoes. Who's your... and for PWG, I haven't really seen enough of them to actually do like 5 favorite matches, but I definitely want to watch more of them. Who's your top 5 best ROH wrestlers? If I was in charge of Ring of Honor, I would definitely be trying to push the Briscoes more. I think they're great, and they've done everything you can do, really. But I still think they're drawing people into Ring of Honor. I think they're still getting them new fans now with the TV deal. If you watch some of the stuff they do on the TV show, it's the Briscoes are doing a lot of the promoting. Whenever they do live shows around this area, it's always the Briscoes signing autographs. When they do radio or TV spots, they send the Briscoes, and I definitely would continue to push them. It's hard to push the Briscoes because they have done everything, and you got to just keep coming up with new feuds for them, I think. And right now, it's kind of like they don't have anything for them to do. They can't go feud with Haas and Benjamin again because we've seen that. Kevin Steen, I would also start doing a lot more with him. El Generico. Davey Richards, I think, is still an amazing wrestler, and they could use him. Top 5 best. And they actually have a great roster with some talented new guys. Cole, Michael Elgin, Kyle O'Reilly, I'm a big fan of his. And they have a lot of talent, so it's easy to think of 5 best Ring of Honor wrestlers because they have so much talent. Tommaso Ciampa is another guy. It's really about feuds, and it's about building up feuds for these Ring of Honor guys and making them, making the fans care and get invested in them. They don't always have the best promos and stuff, but they really need to work on those storylines. I thought that I did enjoy some of the Jay Lethal stuff with him getting pissed off about Kevin Steen spitting in his mom's face. And that was good. Jay Lethal's intensity has been great lately, and they can really do something with that. But I feel like because the show's only an hour a week, and then they do these road rage shows, and the shows are taped so far in advance, it really makes the feuds drag out, and then whatever steam they build where fans are into this feud kind of dies off. Top 5 TNA wrestlers. Bobby Roode, James Storm, Austin Aries. These are guys they should really be pushing. I think they can still do a lot of great stuff with AJ Styles. I like Zema Ion. They just brought in Kenny King. Those are 2 great guys. Who else is in TNA that I like watching? I think Bully Ray's been doing a great job as a heel. Not crazy about this Aces and Eights angle, but I think once he eventually joins Aces and Eights and goes back to being that heel Bully Ray, it's going to be awesome. Top 5 WWF e-wrestlers of all time. I would say Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle. I would count Ric Flair in there. Steve Austin. And Undertaker, I guess. I like The Rock, and I think Triple H deserves to be in that spot, but for me personally, I just think Steve Austin was a unique character, and he's definitely one of the greatest of all time. Undertaker always delivers, and Shawn Michaels is great, Ric Flair's great. Although a lot of the Ric Flair stuff is probably from his time in other companies, not so much WWF or WWE, but I still would include him because you can't Shawn Michaels was the best of all time for my generation, just my opinion, obviously. But Ric Flair was the best for multiple generations, multiple companies, and back when wrestling, you had to go to different territories. And Ric Flair was still like the best guy in multiple territories. That's hard to pull off, and he did it. So you can't really deny Ric Flair as being the greatest of all time. Whether you don't like the fact that he took some stuff, the Buddy Rogers stuff, he's still definitely one of the greatest of all time. And God, if he could wrestle full time for TNA, he'd still be doing it. Yeah, not the wisest decision, but he loves wrestling. If you could be a WWE superstar, what would your gimmick be? This was from Yukimo Hideaki. And this one is actually pretty funny because I remember as a kid how old I was, probably 10 maybe. This is really cheesy, but I actually came up with a pretty generic gimmick where I would call myself the Grinder. And that's that's what I was going for. I haven't thought about what I would be if I was a wrestler today, like what my gimmick would be. Maybe something kind of like a mixture of CM Punk and Raven is something I would do. The Grinder character didn't really have a gimmick. It was just me at like 10 years old thinking what would be a cool wrestling name. And I had like this little thing where I would like grind my fists together, and that was like my signature pose. But yeah, I guess today if I was going to do a wrestling gimmick, it would probably be a combination of something like Raven, CM Punk. I'm trying to think like what my outfit would be. It definitely wouldn't be jorts, but it would be kind of a, I don't know. I'm not really sure what I would wear out there, but something like that where I would just probably cut heel promos and try to be a heel that way. But I was always a huge fan of how Raven would come out there and sit in the corner and just cut these heel promos and get so much heat. And I always really liked that. I liked his gimmick a lot. For EEFUL, what's your favorite WWE era? The Attitude Era. And I'm not saying that because I don't like other eras of wrestling, but the Attitude Era was something special and it cannot be done again. They had a huge opportunity to do some amazing stuff with the invasion angle, and I was disappointed with that because that should have been much better than it was. But there is no way it's going to happen again unless some guy like Ted Turner comes along and buys up a lot of indie companies or something like that and then puts them on TV. I mean, you're talking billions. And it's just, I don't see it happening. But that would be the only way, and even then, it would take time to build that product. TNA will not be able to compete with WWE, if ever, but if they do, it's not going to be for like 10 years, 15 years, way down the road. And they really have to start improving now if they ever want to even see that before they're considered competition. So I do think it's going to be a long time before we get another Monday Night War. And just as a fan, I feel very lucky that I got to be a fan during that era because ECW, WCW, and WWF were all great shows. And the talent pool was amazing. And they have a lot of great stuff now and a lot of great wrestlers with Ring of Honor, TNA, and WWE. But it feels like WWE is happy to do the bare minimum because they don't have competition. Whether you like what they put on Monday night or not, you don't have an alternative. They don't have to worry about you clicking over to another wrestling company. You can click over to other stuff, but there's no wrestling alternative. And they know wrestling fans want to watch wrestling on Monday nights, and they're kind of stuck with WWE. But there's also a lot of fans who, when WCW closed, didn't start watching WWE. They just quit altogether. And they haven't found TNA. So it's losing WCW really hurt the business, but it was a great era to be a fan, and we were getting great stuff on 3 different companies. The ECW pay-per-views were great, so that was definitely my favorite era. Colton Kane, I've got 2 questions, if that's okay. If you can only answer one, the first question will do. Do you think an actual Punk and Austin feud leading to a WrestleMania match could live up to the hype? Yes. I think Punk and Austin could both put on a great match, and we know Punk will deliver because he's still wrestling. Austin would have a little bit of ring rust, but I think he'd be training, and he wouldn't half-ass it. He'd go out there and he'd make sure he delivered a good match because he's Steve Austin. He's got a reputation. So I do think it would live up to the hype. Think about the promos. Just the promos alone building up to that match would draw them so much money. That's why I think they're going to wait and do that at WrestleMania 30. Because right now, with Brock Lesnar, The Rock, all these other names being on WrestleMania this year, they don't really need to use Austin. And come WrestleMania 30, they're not going to have The Rock. And they're not going to have Brock Lesnar. And they're going to need that star power. And I just hope that after this year's WrestleMania, they really continue to try and build new stars. Dolph Ziggler, Daniel Bryan, Cody Rhodes. And that way, after WrestleMania 30, they won't have to rely on bringing back all this old talent just to draw money for WrestleMania. It's sad they have to do that now, but think about it. Some of the biggest matches are when Undertaker returns for once a year and stuff like that. So they really got to build these guys up. They've done a good job with Punk, and Sheamus, I guess, but it's still not at that level yet. Do you think it was a good idea to turn Austin back heel at Invasion, especially after the fantastic old Stone Cold stuff on the previous Raw and SmackDowns? I don't think so. I know it's something Steve Austin wanted to do. He wanted to kind of give his character a breath of fresh air. I wish there were some people nowadays who would do that and man up and tell Vince that they want to be heels, like Cena, Orton. But yeah, Stone Cold pretty much could do whatever he wanted. And he did. And he wanted to be a heel, and it flopped. I'm sure he regrets doing it. And it just, you can't... Some guys are at a level where when you're the anti-hero, you can never really be a heel. Steve Austin was a babyface from stunning guys like Santa Claus and Jim Ross. And when you become a babyface from doing things like that, it's hard to become a heel and get that reaction. People just, instead of booing you, they're just kind of confused, but they still feel, it's Steve Austin, let's cheer. So it doesn't really work on a lot of levels. For EEFUL, top 5 RPGs. Skies of Arcadia Legends, one of my favorite games of all time. Chrono Trigger, another one of my favorites. Super Mario RPG, I love that game. There's a lot of Final Fantasies. Hard to pick a favorite Final Fantasy. I liked 8, I like 7. I like the ones they remade for the DS that were with updated graphics, 3, 4. What's some other good RPGs? Secret of Mana was a great RPG. Wild Arms. It's tough, I know. I've always been a Nintendo fan, and Super Nintendo was really the last Nintendo console that had great RPGs for it. Nintendo 64, it was like that one game, Quest 64, didn't really deliver, and they never really got a lot of RPGs. GameCube had some, but it was still really lacking. The Wii's had some good ones, though. Arc Fantasia Rising, I can't remember the name of it. Arc Rise Fantasia, that's another game I thought was pretty good for the Wii. The Paper Mario series is good. Honor and Power 311. Who do you think is the hottest WWE diva today? I like that Maxine girl, but they fired her before she even got to do anything. And I'm starting to come around to AJ, actually, but I hate her character so much. So, hottest WWE diva today. I guess Eve. Isaiah 1231 CPNYC. Where are you from? North Carolina. And I just found out that Ring of Honor is coming back here March 30th to do the where we have like the state fair, and that's going to be awesome because it is very close to where I live. So I will be going to that one. That's the closest Ring of Honor's ever come to me. Nick Glenn. Do you have a video game console? If so, which one? And do you have online? Are you... Okay, my video game console, I have always got the Nintendo consoles, every single one of them. I still haven't got the Wii U yet, but that's mostly because I don't have time to play the Wii U, and I know if I get it, I'm going to have trouble making sure I do all my other stuff. So I've kind of put off getting the Wii U for right now. But I do have the 3DS, the DS, all the Game Boys, Super Nintendo, 64, regular Nintendo, GameCube, the Wii, and my brother was the one who would actually get stuff like Sega, PlayStation, and the other systems, so I was able to play those. But I've always just been a big Nintendo fan. And I do play the Wii online. I have GoldenEye online, I have Black Ops. A lot of the first-person shooter games I like to play online on the Wii. Monster Hunter Tri is a great Wii game. So yeah, that's usually what I spend a lot of time playing when I am playing video games. And I love zombies for the Wii, but it sucked because Black Ops, we got one zombie map. That's how much it sucks to be a Wii owner. One map of zombies. And that is one reason I bought Black Ops. And there's the option to download and buy more maps, but they never gave them to us. So it's Kino der Toten is the only map we get to play. Over and over again. And to top it off, there's a glitch in the map where I can stand at the top of the stairs in zombies, and I can get them all down below me, piled up, and they can't touch me. And I'll go into an online lobby and I'll tell the other people how to do this, and then I'll show them, and then we make it to like round 40 or something, and then the Wii freezes. Like, you can't even play it that long because it works the Wii so hard to play Black Ops that it'll freeze. So it won't even save how far you... It sucks, man. I hate that. That's why I'm glad the Wii U is a better console and we can finally play some of these other games we haven't been able to get, like Arkham Asylum and things, or Arkham City. 2, are you a fan of comic books? If so, do you collect them? I am a fan of comic books. Mostly when I was younger, I don't really read American comic books anymore. I prefer manga, and that's because American comic books kind of... it's too much. When you read a manga story like One Piece, it's one guy, he writes it, starts, and it ends. With American comic books, there's like 5 issues of Spider-Man. Spectacular Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man. Like, what's the real story? What is happening? And it became too much. People come back to life all the time, and there's just so many different issues you have to get for one storyline, and it's just really turned me off of American comic books. There's still some great ones like Invincible and The Walking Dead and things like that, but as far as like your weekly Incredible Hulk, I don't collect those anymore. I have a ton of Spectacular Spider-Man comic books. I did a comic collection video, or at least some of my collection, months ago. But yeah, I haven't really been collecting American comic books in a very long time. 3, top 10 favorite bands. And 4, do you listen to punk rock? If so, what are some of your favorite bands of that genre? I do like punk rock. That's probably my favorite genre of music. It's one I've just listened to the longest, I think. But I like everything. I like all types of music. Some of my favorite punk bands: MXPX, NoFX, The Misfits, Wood Danzig, or Michael Graves. The other stuff I don't really care for. The new Misfits, where it's just Jerry only, is, I don't know what that is. It's not necessarily bad because I have heard some of it, but it's not the same. And it's one of those things where the Misfits is still thriving because of the name. In fact, I'm wearing the Misfits shirt now. But it's one of those things where the band is still going just because they're the Misfits. But it really hasn't been the Misfits since Danzig left. And Michael Graves was a great way to restart it. And that's when they started wrestling for WCW. So that was good. But after that, yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of a done deal with the Misfits. Some other punk bands. The classics, Ramones, Sex Pistols. God, this is another question. It's hard for me to think of things off the top of my head. I have to go through my CD collection. But I guess Alkaline Trio, Blink-182 are considered pop-punk bands, but I like them. I like the old Green Day stuff. I don't really care about them at all. I haven't cared about them in probably 10 years. But they were a good band at the time. Rancid is another great punk band. I was surprised to find out that Lars was such a huge wrestling fan. When I was watching that punk documentary, he's in there a lot, and he's talking about other companies and wrestling. He's a huge wrestling fan. Top 10 favorite bands. Yeah, I kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. Just, I like Queen. I like Smashing Pumpkins. Nine Inch Nails has always been really good. I've always been impressed by Trent Reznor just because he does it on his own. And yeah, there's a lot. I will probably have to either answer this in another Q&A and really put some thought into it after I look at my CD collection, or make like a CD collection video. 5. What are some of your favorite anime shows? Top 5 list if you can. Even though I don't really watch a lot of anime, I have been watching the latest One Piece episodes the past couple weeks. And One Piece is a great anime show. I don't really care much to watch anime because I'm already reading the manga. But I still think One Piece is a great anime. It's at its 400 something episodes now. Something crazy like that. So it's definitely long running. It's a great story. So whether it's in manga form or anime form, it's awesome. So definitely One Piece. Dragon Ball Z kind of got me into the whole thing. So that has to be up there. Or Dragon Ball. In Japan, there is no Dragon Ball Z. It's all just Dragon Ball. That's something they did in America. I don't think I'd say Naruto just because there's so much filler. And I think they do filler when it's not even necessary in Naruto. There was, if I remember correctly, there was 1 year where there was about 2 years worth of filler in Naruto before we ever got any stuff from the actual manga. That's horrible. Bleach was a fun anime, but it's over. They canceled Bleach for some reason. I don't know why they did that. I hear Soul Eater's really good, but I haven't watched it for myself. I've watched some D. Gray Man, but that's another one they ended. The manga's still going, but they ended it. So I kind of just prefer to read manga. But if I had to say, and someone said, I want to start watching an anime, I would tell them One Piece because I think it's the best story. And whether you watch it in anime or read the manga, it's great and people will love it. 6. What are some of your favorite tag teams of all time? The Outsiders with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. I liked Mick Foley and Chainsaw Charlie. Some great tag teams. I'm trying to go back to WCW. There's some great tag teams there. Scott Norton and Buff Bagwell I thought was entertaining for a time. Steiner Brothers. I was a huge fan of the Legion of Doom when I was really young because of the whole Spikes thing. And I'm talking very young. I thought that was legit. I thought those guys were really just crazy bikers or something. Demolition. actually is another good one with Axe Smash. But yeah, tag teams nowadays, Kings of Wrestling is a amazing tag team, or they were an amazing tag team. Steen and Generico, Briscoe Brothers. Ring of Honor's got some great new tag teams: Young Bucks, Hardy Boys, Dudley Boys. Motor City Machine Guns was great. Beer Money was great. So there's a lot of great tag teams over the years. 7. If you were stuck in a room with Justin Bieber and One Direction, who would you kill first? And you can't say yourself for an answer. I guess I would kill One Direction just because I have no idea who they are. What's one thing most people do not know about you? From Nick Glenn. I think a lot of people who watch the videos don't realize how big of a gamer I am just because I haven't been able to do a lot of video game reviews. But yeah, I'm a huge video game player. I have a gigantic collection of video games. I showed my Wii collection in one video I did, but I haven't even shown my GameCube collection yet, and it's probably, I have almost every GameCube game ever made. I kind of stopped collecting them when I started buying Wii games, but I have an insane amount of GameCube games. It seriously is almost every game ever made. Are you a fan of the TV show Walking Dead? From Nick Glenn. Yeah, I review the show every week. I love the first 2 seasons. Season 3 has been amazing so far. Really great stuff. Right now it's building up to the end because they're supposed to split it up from 8 episodes this season, or like Season 3 Part 1 and Season 3 Part 2, kind of like they did with Season 2. So they're building up to the end of the first half, and it's getting pretty crazy, but I love that show. Haven't been able to read the comic books. I really want to. I hear they're amazing, so I do want to check that out, but I am a big fan of the TV show. The Silent Aaron, do you watch any anime or just stick to the manga? If so, which ones? No, I don't really watch any anime. The mangas I read, or I have read, One Piece, Bleach, Naruto, Death Note, Yu Yu Hakusho, Dragon Ball. I like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Berserk, Vagabond, Slam Dunk, D. Gray Man, and there's a ton of other series I want to read. I want to read Toriko, and I feel like there was another one. I want to read Fairy Tail. But yeah, there's Hunter x Hunter. I've heard great things about that too, but it kind of turns me off when I find out that the guy who wrote it just stops whenever he feels like it. And One Piece, I don't understand how he can just stop writing the manga. I know his manga is so popular in Japan, he can kind of get away with doing whatever he wants. But when you're writing a manga and you have someone like Oda who writes One Piece every single week, a chapter every week, and he's made more money than he needs right now, and could easily quit at any time and be happy, but he cares about what he does and delivers to the fans. When you have someone like that, and then you have someone like the Hunter x Hunter writer, who also wrote Yu Yu Hakusho, I can't remember his name right now, but when you have him, and he just kind of does 10 chapters a year on a good year, that really makes me not want to read the manga, because I've heard it's great, but I'm going to catch up, and then it's kind of like I'm waiting all year just for 10 chapters. And that's going to be hard to get a lot of storyline progression with only 10 chapters. Same thing with Berserk. I know the art's fantastic, but my God, that's a few chapters a year. I feel like I've been stuck in the same damn arc in Berserk forever now. R5V089, what do you do as a day job? Right now I just work from home online. What I did before was I was a cook, and the restaurant I worked at, I was a cook for like 5 years, and it went out of business. We just didn't have enough money coming in to pay the employees and the overhead. And so it wasn't really that bad for me. I was able to save a lot of my money. Definitely save your money no matter what you do, because it will come in handy. But yeah, it really sucks. I see a lot of, there was actually a restaurant that took over the location, and they're not doing very well either. I wonder why they did that. Because around here it's very tough for a local restaurant to grow. And really the only ones we have are established. They've been here for years and years and years, and the people are loyal to them. But for a new place, just after watching what my boss had to go through running a restaurant, I would never do that myself personally. At least not around here, because you have so much to deal with overheads and paying employees and everything. But it was a great job. I enjoyed it, but it just wasn't getting enough business. MJW2690. Who are your 5 favorite wrestlers? WWE, Ring of Honor, TNA. Well, I think I mentioned the Ring of Honor and TNA ones already. But for WWE, my top 5 guys right now would have to be Daniel Bryan. I like Damian Sandow, Cody Rhodes, Dolph Ziggler, and who would I pick? I guess Wade Barrett. Those are probably the 5 guys I would take and try to really push and do something with these guys. Cody Rhodes has been long overdue for a big push. 11, Amiri. Who in Ring of Honor would you love to see in the WWE? That is very easy. It is the Briscoe brothers. I think they have done absolutely everything they can do on the indies. And of all the guys, I feel they deserve the payday more than anyone else. Just because they're so good and talented naturally that they don't really need to. I know WWE would change their gimmick. And I know it would not be the same Briscoes. But at this point, they've done everything on the indies. Let these guys make some money. Dio Sky 93. Who will win the 2013 Royal Rumble in your opinion? I think if Ryback's in it, he's going to win it. That's just the way I see it going. If not Ryback, maybe Barrett. And then that's just going to be him going after the SmackDown belt. Yeah, I don't really know. I really think it's too early to tell. Just until we see what they want to do with Ryback, Punk, and all of this stuff with Cena, and how they want to set things up. But just from what we've seen so far, I think if Ryback is in the Royal Rumble, there's a good chance he's going to win it. Gamer Boy Guy, would you consider reviewing stand-up acts? I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy. I have a DVD collection of all my stand-up comedy DVDs. I have a video on that up in my movie reviews playlist. But yeah, I don't really know how I would review a stand-up comedy DVD. I definitely have thought about it, but I'm not really sure what I would do. I guess I could say some of my favorite jokes or something, but yeah, that's a tough thing to kind of do a video on. But I am a huge fan of stand-up, and the best I have so far is the stand-up DVD collection video I did. And I kind of talk about some of my favorites in that video. Daniel Rob Wright, last question here. Okay, you can make 3 transfers. You can bring 3 people from TNA to the WWE, and you can bring 3 people from the WWE to TNA. Please don't just put the people you dislike in TNA. Haha. 3 people from TNA to WWE. I would put, and 3 people. Okay, I would take and put in WWE just to see some new stuff. Just because I personally would like to see some of these guys in new feuds would be Bobby Roode. I think he could do some great matches in WWE with guys like Dolph Ziggler. And then I would also take AJ Styles, because I think it would be cool to see him do some matches right now while they're at a good age, they're in their prime. And I guess Abyss would be kind of fun to see in WWE. I would like to see Daniel Bryan have some great matches in TNA. They do put a lot of focus on wrestling, so I think he could go out there and really put on a long match. He could wrestle Angle and do some things like that, so Daniel Bryan would be interesting in TNA. And he's my favorite wrestler, so I'm definitely not putting the people I dislike in TNA. It's really tough because I'm trying to think about somebody who could make like the crossover and do that style of wrestling. I mean, you could easily put someone like Antonio Cesaro because he's already a really talented wrestler and he could go back and forth. And I guess I would put Randy Orton over there just because it would really help TNA. He is a star, whether we like him or not, and it would really get a lot of people watching TNA, talking about TNA, and he could be himself. He could be a heel. WWE insists on making him a babyface even though he doesn't want to be one, and I think in TNA he would get kind of a breath of fresh air and maybe start performing again. And that's it. That is all the questions I have here. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It's my first ever Q&A. I think I'm going to try and do one of these every 100 videos, so I'll do another one at 600. But yeah, I hope you guys like this. I know this one's going to be really long, but if my computer allows it, I am going to try and upload all of this in one part. So I know it's probably going to be long. Nope, I don't expect anybody to sit here and try and watch this whole video in one sitting or anything like that. But I figured it's better because it's supposed to be for the 500th video, and instead of splitting it up into 3 parts, I figured I would just try and upload the entire thing. So it could be a day before this video is finished uploading. But yeah, it'll take me around 4 hours to upload a 20-minute video. Maybe a little longer. And this one is going to be pretty long, so I'm not sure how long this is going to take, but anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really enjoyed answering all of your questions. I appreciate all the questions you guys sent me, and if you come up with anything else, I will make another video to where you can leave your comments or questions for the next one, or if you want, you can leave questions for the next one on this video. But yeah, that's it. So hope you guys had fun watching this, and thanks for watching. Bye. Gage, and Necro Butcher just snaps and beats the shit out of Justice Pain legit. I like that match a lot. So there's a ton. I mean, if you want good death matches, watch CZW Tournament of Death, IWA King of the Death matches, or some of the Cage of Death shows. Cage of Death shows aren't going to be quite as hardcore because they can't use light tubes because it's in the arena. But the deathmatch tournaments, they do whatever the hell they want there. And I've seen some crazy stuff. I've seen a guy get like darts thrown at his back, get slammed onto fireworks, all types of stuff. What's your 10 favorite bands of all time? Well, I like Queen, Blink-182, Alkaline Trio, the Misfits, Danzig. I like Misfits with Michael Graves and Danzig, but I really like Danzig a lot. There's some other good ones. No Effects is a band I still listen to occasionally. Ramones. Smashing Pumpkins I always liked. I think Nine Inch Nails is still pretty good. I'm not even keeping track of how many bands that is. Pink Floyd was always really good. I really have to go through my CD collection for this. I have a huge CD collection, so I guess maybe one day I can go through those and do a video on that. And if you could make a dream pay-per-view with wrestlers dead and alive, who would be in it? Wrestlers dead and alive. I would do Necro Butcher versus Bruiser Brody. Maybe Owen Hart versus Dolph Ziggler. Undertaker. Who would I put Undertaker against? I guess Undertaker versus Sting would be cool, and it's looking like that's not going to happen with WWE, so I guess that would be a fun match. Who did Daniel Bryan versus Chris Benoit? Andre the Giant versus The Big Show. Why not? Alright, so this is from Cool Dude 336. What's up? It's me again. I wanted to ask you, would you rather be in a fist fight with Jason, Michael Myers, or Freddy? Well, that's pretty much a lose-lose-lose situation. But if I had to pick one of them, and I had to fight one of those three, it would be Michael Myers, just because he's human. And Jason, you can't beat Jason shooting him or stabbing him, so you definitely can't beat him in a fist fight. Freddy can only get you in your dreams, which means he has full power. So it would have to be Michael Myers, just because he's the only one who's human and you could maybe stun him. Okay, this is from CM Ray 123. Will you review some more latest movies? Yeah, I actually was going to the theater every single week to watch new movies, and I did that review on Sinister, and the theater just really sucked ass, and it completely turned me off of going. I watch a lot of stuff online, and Redbox, Netflix, things like that, but as far as going to the theater, it's just hard to schedule times to go. I definitely don't want to go by myself, so I'm trying to schedule times to go. And it's tough. Friday night is one of the only times I really can go, and I'm not doing that. It was hell, and there's no reason in me going through that again. So maybe I can watch some of the latest movies a little bit later, maybe not exactly on Friday night or midnight showings or anything, but I do want to review some of the newer movies. Wreck-It Ralph looks awesome. That James Bond movie, Dread 3D, things like that. How did you get your name? I just picked it randomly. Really, I was thinking of some other names and they were taken, so I picked this one and it wasn't taken, so I went with this. Did you ever think you'd get this far? No, not really. I mean, when I started doing videos, it was just audio only, and it was really just a way to bitch about some of the shows. Like TNA I thought was doing some pretty bad stuff at the time. Not as bad as it was a couple years ago, but still not very good. I apologize for my voice. My allergies are going crazy tonight. But yeah, I just started recording the audio videos, and then I got the webcam, so I started doing the regular videos, and I kept going with it and trying to review all the wrestling shows. I just enjoy doing it. It's just fun for me. Who inspired you to make videos, reviews? I watched a lot of people on YouTube, not so much wrestling reviewers. The only wrestling reviewers I really watched were a couple years ago, and that was the RVD Tito guys, Bill and Doug. I just like their opinions. We're around the same age. We watched the same type of wrestling growing up, the Attitude Era, and because of that, I really enjoyed their videos, but I didn't really watch anybody and try and base myself off of them or anything. It was just, like I said, a way for me to bitch about the shows and give my opinions on some of the shows and what I liked, what I didn't like, and I figured why not? I mean, I watch these shows every single week, so I thought it could be fun, and it kind of grew and built up, so I just wanted to keep doing it. Could you review older pay-per-views? I actually did a few old shows. I plan to do more of those in the future, but right now I know I haven't done any in a while. Whatever he wanted, Vince kind of went along with it. Many times in the past this happened. So I do think that Shawn Michaels had a lot of say in the old WWE era, or WWF era, but I don't think Vince was behind it at all. If he was, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall would have never left. And if them going to WCW was part of some conspiracy, huge plan, I don't think they would have beat them in the ratings for so many weeks, and Vince allowed this. So I definitely don't think Vince was behind that at all. This is by Justin Poole. Hey man, here's some Q&A questions. What's your top 5 best ECW matches and worst ECW matches from the original? Oh man, that is really tough. I can tell you my favorite ECW match right off the top of my head is Sabu versus Terry Funk in a barbed wire match. That was amazing. Really love that match. What's some other good ECW matches? Some of the stuff that sticks out in my mind, you watch it again now and it's not so great, like Sabu versus Sandman Stairway to Hell match. I remember Taz going through the ring with Bam Bam, or the ramp. I can't remember which one it was, but just a lot of crazy moments. Tommy Dreamer versus Raven. Sandman versus Raven in a barbed wire match I didn't think was very good. Sandman, really, you watch his stuff now and it's just, if it was all about the entrance with Sandman, and if you watch it now and you don't really care about the entrance anymore, then you get nothing out of it. But it was always really cool to see the fans go crazy for Sandman. But yeah, once he got in the ring, it was a different story. So who else had some great matches? I mean, Jerry Lynn, not James Storm, Lance Storm, Rob Van Dam had some amazing matches with Jerry Lynn. I think we all know those. RVD versus Sabu, Sabu versus Taz. Who else would have been around ECW in that time? But yeah, it's hard for me to pick like a key top 5. I like some of the Tanaka versus Mike Awesome matches. And they would bring in like the Luchador group. They had Tajiri, Super Crazy. And who else was in one of those matches? It was one I watched recently, I think for Anarchy Rules, and it was Guido. So those three would put on great matches. And ECW was really good at just giving the fans a lot of different stuff. As far as worst matches, Sandman matches. Some of those are terrible. The Dudley Boys put on some great matches. You had New Jack. Some of his stuff, watching it now, you could say could be a worst match just because it's not really... At the time, it was very hardcore. Watching it back now, it's not really that hardcore. It's kind of just him dancing around hitting people. Alright guys, I'm here with my 500th video, and this is my first Q&A. I appreciate everybody who's left me questions, so I'm going to try and answer all of these. I don't edit my videos or anything, so it's just going to be one straight shot to the end. So I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but let's try and get this done. Starting with, I actually have a few questions on some other videos, so I'm going to try and get to those first. This is by the SES Man 3. Good review, man. I'm not really a horror movie kind of guy or watch Dexter, but I like the vids anyway. My question for the Q&A is, what is your favorite band? It's really tough to pick a favorite band of all time. I know there's a lot of bands I'm not necessarily a big fan of, but you can't deny they have a ton of hits, like Metallica. They have a ton of songs, just the singles, that are really great that I enjoy listening to, but I'm not really a huge Metallica fan, but I have to say that I do like a lot of their songs. I think Queen probably is the best overall, just because they have so many great songs, and they're really catchy, and it's lasted throughout the years. So I definitely think Queen deserves to be in the top. I'm also a big fan of something more modern. I would say Blink-182. I've always enjoyed their songs. You buy one of their CDs and it's like every song is really good, really catchy, and that's something that sticks out in my mind is when I listen to an album, do I like all the songs? And it's very rare to find a band where you can sit and listen to it and you actually like every single song on the CD. But I feel that way with Blink-182. I feel that way with the band Alkaline Trio. So there are some great bands out there that I can sit and just listen to every single song on the CD and like it. At least the older Alkaline Trio stuff. Now, not so much. Suicide Dive Wrestling, or this is by Hydra LX. Suicide Dive Wrestling, I have a real pro wrestling question for you. The Clique, Sean, Kevin, Scott, X-Pac, and Hunter supposedly was influencing the cards for WWF events, right? Vince had no control over their behavior as noted in the archives of WWF. Or was he the leader of the group? Remember, this was the beginning of the Attitude Era, and people like Bret Hart, Shane Douglas had problems with this group. What do you think about the true inception of this backstage stable? Was Vince all behind it? No, I don't think so at all. I think Vince had to go along with the Clique just because of who they were. They were all top guys. I mean, Triple H wasn't so much, and X-Pac wasn't really, but Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Shawn Michaels were some of his top names. And it wasn't so much that Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were there, it was Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was his guy, and what stuff. And I know that's his thing, but that doesn't really make for an entertaining match anymore. So I would have to say some of his stuff, but not all of it. I mean, I still enjoy some New Jack matches. What's your top 10 best hardcore matches of all time? I guess by hardcore matches you mean really hardcore, like CZW deathmatch stuff. I really, really liked Cage of Death 5, where it was Zandig, I can't remember what they were calling themselves, versus the High Five. And that was led by Messiah, and that was awesome. They had the Cage of Death, and then they had this big walkway that led to it. And then they had a whole nother ring set up just full of thumbtacks, and people took bumps off the top of this thing into the thumbtacks below. It was just a sick, sick match. One thing that sucked about CZW was when they had to ban the light tubes in the arena. Before, they were having these crazy matches with Zandig versus Wife Beater, the I Quit matches with them, and just a ton of crazy light tube death matches. And then they banned light tubes in the arena, I guess because of the toxic fumes or something. So they had to change it. But yeah, just a lot of the old CZW stuff was great. Tournament of Death, I really liked Tournament of Death 4, the finals with Nick Gage, Necro, Zandig. Sexy Eddie versus... Who did he wrestle in that match? The match where he gets his arm cut open and he's like drinking his own blood. I think that was against Green Phantom, maybe? Sick Nick Mondo versus Zandig from Tournament of Death 2, where he takes the insane bump off the top of the warehouse building. That was awesome. Sick Nick Mondo versus Wife Beater, where he gets hit with the Weed Whacker shot. Damn, what are some other good ones? IWA Mid-South, I actually thought Ian Rotten versus Mickey Knuckles was very good. That match really surprised me, because it was the first time you ever saw like a guy, at least the first time I ever saw it, a guy wrestling a girl in a pure death match. And you would think he'd take it easy on her. He did not. There's a thing they use in death matches a lot, and it's a water jug on a stick. So those big plastic things you get water out of, like the water cooler, it is on a stick, and he just beats her in the face with this thing. It was very, very intense, but I love that match. Necro Butcher versus Madman Pondo. Toby Klein versus Necro Butcher. They had amazing deathmatch feuds. Cage of Death 7 with the Tough Crazy Bastards versus the Zandig. Was Lobo? No, not Lobo. Justice Payne, Nick